Chapter 1241. Bang! From being silent, they instantly reached the sky. Under the attention of tens of thousands of people, the battle between the two most popular candidates for the championship of the sect battle had begun. A vast amount of blazing flames mixed with illusory soft light swept across the stage. Everyone's hearts trembled. Wang Li, who was nearly 1,000 meters away just a moment ago, suddenly appeared in the sky behind Pei Yi. The palm that contained a majestic hidden force pressed down on his opponent like a mountain, while Pei Yi's fist force was like a mountain, extremely fierce. The two collided head-on, directly exploding the entire arena. Crack, crack! Deep cracks quickly spread out from Pei Yi's body, and his feet also stepped into the ground. Even so, Pei Yi's body was as straight as a cold spear, and even his knees didn't bend in the slightest. Strange distortions appeared in the space where the two's power met. Humph! A mocking sneer appeared on Pei Yi's face. Your power is getting weaker and weaker. After saying that, Pei Yi lifted his leg and heavily stomped on the ground. Boom! The violent aura surged out in the opposite direction with the rebounding force. Layers of scorching red flames burst out like a wave of fire. Bang! With an explosive sound, Wang Li, who was above, was immediately pushed back. The illusory light and shadow covering his palm and arm were also pushed back a few times. Everyone in the arena was secretly shocked. To be honest, in terms of strength alone, Pei Yi, who was ranked third on the Sky Marshal list, was a level higher than Wang Li. After all, the Qilin's sacred body that he possessed originated from the terrifying bloodline of an ancient great beast. It contained extremely powerful destructive power. The strength of his flesh and bones was not something that ordinary people could compare to. However, Wang Li had never been someone who relied on brute force to fight. Wang Li was like a falcon soaring in the sky. He closed his palms and opened them, facing Pei Yi below. Demon Binding Pivot Heaven Technique. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, a dozen incomparably sharp illusory long nails pierced down. Every long nail was 3 to 4 meters long, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, emitting a fierce aura. Ta, 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 the giant nails were like scattered wooden stakes, stabbing into the ground beside Pei Yi, blocking him in the middle like a railing. There were even 2 long nails that pierced through Pei Yi's feet, firmly pinning his feet to the table. Everyone in the audience felt their hearts ache. However, Pei Yi acted as if nothing had happened. There was not the slightest hint of pain on his face. Moreover, the sole of his foot that was pierced through did not bleed. It's an illusion. That's right, but even if it's an illusion, you'll still feel pain. Senior brother Wang Li's illusion technique is very unique. Even if the body is under the illusion technique, the injuries it brings will be brought to reality. But senior brother Pei Yi didn't react at all. I don't know either. Looking at Pei Yi, who was restrained by the long nails on the table, everyone present was secretly shocked. At the same time, in the sky above the Lingshao platform, a violent surging tide was suddenly set off. Water ripples covered the sky, shaking the earth. The sky changed color, and dark clouds covered the sky. Above the dark void, a huge green water dragon suddenly swooped down. This is? Everyone felt that the scene in front of them was a little familiar. Yang Ao, it's Yang Ao's move, someone in the crowd exclaimed in surprise. Thinking back to the battle of the top 16, when Long Xuanxuang fought against Yang Ao, the latter launched a fierce attack with this move. In the end, he was frozen into a large ice sculpture by Long Xuanxuang's 10,000-year chilly winter force. Before the crowd could react, the huge green water dragon had already rushed in front of Pei Yi, bearing its fangs and claws. Its aura was earth-shattering. Pei Yi's pupils reflected the ferocious dragon. The red light outside his body rose like a divine fire, and intertwining dark red light pillars gathered in front of him like python patterns. Roar! An earth-shattering roar of a fierce beast came from Pei Yi's throat. Then, he stretched out his right palm, and the red flame lingering between his palm and arm immediately expanded, and turned into a sharp giant claw that was a few meters wide. Bang! The green water dragon collided with the piercingly cold giant claw. An earth-shattering shockwave of energy spread out in all directions. Layer after layer of stone bricks and soil on the platform were blown away. Green ripples blotted out the sky and covered the earth like an exploding ocean tide, splashing hundreds of meters away. Buzz! The protective array on the 4 spectator stands was immediately activated. Waves of violent energy waves collided with the transparent and illusory light barrier around the arena, causing circular ripples to appear. Everyone in the audience widened their eyes. Although Wang Li's move was almost exactly the same as Yang Ao's, the latter's power was far superior. "Humph, you dare to show off in front of me with a stolen move?" Pei Yi sneered, and his eyes turned cold. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the giant claw directly burst out a solid flame-light pillar. The tip of the light pillar was sharp, like an earth-shattering giant sword burning with flames. In the next instant, the green water dragon's huge body was pierced, and then it exploded into a sky full of water droplets. Whoosh! The earth-shattering waves of water splashed onto the platform, and the temperature in the air suddenly became extremely cold. The liquid water actually quickly froze into ice, and in the blink of an eye, the huge soaring firmament battle ring was immediately covered in a layer of pure white snow. Crack! The sound of ice shattering rang out one after another. Giant guards with giant spears and ice shields crawled out from the ice and snow. "This is my move?" Long Xuanxuang was stunned, and she looked at Chu Hen. Traces of surprise surged in her phoenix-like eyes. Chu Hen nodded, and a profound expression surged between his brows. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 giant ice giants surrounded Pei Yi. They were like divine guards guarding the heavenly palace, and they emitted an indomitable and powerful aura. Spears that were like ice pillars tore through the air, and they launched the fiercest attack towards Pei Yi, who was in the center. Pei Yi's eyes turned cold, and he put his palms together. Countless scarlet flames that lingered around his body interweaved around his arms. He slowly pulled his palms apart, and a rapidly brewing fireball quickly took shape. The fireball quickly grew larger, and spirit patterns that looked like underground magma flowed and flickered under the ball. Along with the powerful airflow that quickly surrounded the world, the fireball in front of Pei Yi also began to spin rapidly. Burning heaven jade! In an instant, a raging, blazing spiral storm spread out in all directions with Pei Yi as the center. At the same time, the attacks of the ice giants whistled down, one ice, one fire. The two opposing chaotic airflows interweaved with each other. Boom! An incomparably violent explosion resounded. The ball of fire in front of Pei Yi was like a blazing sun that had exploded. The spiral flame storm swept across the soaring sky arena, and the arena surface was torn apart inch by inch. Stone fragments and dust filled the sky. One after another, the ice pillars were shattered by the impact. One by one, the ice giants were torn into pieces. The scarlet flames were like ring-shaped flying blades, and it was as if anyone who was in it would be instantly annihilated. Bang bang! At the same time, the sturdy long nails that imprisoned Pei Yi were all sent flying, and the 2 huge nails that pierced his feet were immediately shattered into powder. Good! Senior brother Pei Yi should counterattack. The disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy clenched their fists and secretly cheered. Swish! Pei Yi, who had broken through the restraints, leaped up and directly rushed toward one of the ice giants. "You're quite good at acting." As soon as he finished speaking, Pei Yi raised his hand, and a majestic palm print furiously slammed down. Bang! With a loud explosion, the ice fragments exploded, and the ice giant exploded into thousands of pieces. And a few of the ice fragments actually floated and gathered together. Then, they solidified into a human silhouette. The silhouette solidified from illusory to solid, and finally turned into Wang Li's figure. "You even discovered this." A frivolous smile appeared on Wang Li's face. But as soon as he finished speaking, Pei Yi, who was in front of him, had already disappeared. Bang! With a muffled sound, everyone's pupils suddenly shrank. The sky was filled with falling leaves, and the air was like a whirlpool. Pei Yi suddenly appeared in front of Wang Li, and his right hand that was covered in flames actually pierced through Wang Li's chest. Senior brother Wang Li? The expressions of everyone from the South Spirit Peak Academy changed. Wang Li's eyes were wide open and his face was pale. He lowered his head and looked up at Pei Yi. You, humph. A cold smile bloomed on Pei Yi's face. Can't even withstand a single blow. But as soon as he finished speaking, the painful expression on Wang Li's face was actually swept away, and was replaced with a frivolous playful expression. I'm sorry, this is also an illusion. Along with Wang Li's chuckle, the color of his body rapidly darkened. His facial features twisted, and his body expanded. Then, he turned into a thick tree trunk like a giant umbrella that suddenly opened, lush leaves spread out in all directions, and dragon-like tree vines extended up and down the stage. In the blink of an eye, a towering ancient tree that was hundreds of feet tall appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 1242. That's the power of my tree soul. Zhao Qinkai, who was outside the arena, covered her mouth and exclaimed as she looked at the towering tree that had suddenly taken root on the Ling Shao battle arena. The gazes of Chu Hen, Wu Yan, Yi Yao and the others also slightly narrowed as they revealed astonished expressions. From Yang Ao's green water dragon to Long Xuanshuang's ice, and now Zhao Qingcai's tree soul, they were all moves of different attributes, but Wang Li was able to display them vividly in the form of an illusion. In terms of the magnificence of the moves, it was far superior to the original. The most astonishing thing was that the other party could switch back and forth as he pleased. Thousand illusion sacred body. As expected of the top bloodline limit of the high-grade saint body. At the same time, Wang Li was worthy of being ranked second on the heaven martial list. Buzz! A vast and majestic aura filled the sky and earth, causing the air flow on the entire battle arena to become restless. The towering ancient tree seemed to cover the sky. The incomparably large and lush canopy was like a large umbrella that was opened. Pei Yi's palms and arms were deeply inserted into the tree trunk, and his entire body seemed to be hanging on it. Useless effort. With a cold look in his eyes, the blazing flames that lingered around his body soared into the sky. Pei Yi's arm that was inserted into the tree trunk immediately erupted with a condensed light pattern, followed by a terrifying cutting power. It was like an unbreakable giant blade of divine light. Gotcha! In an instant, the entire giant tree split apart from the middle, and the rapidly expanding cracks quickly spread up and down the tree trunk, along with the surging blazing waves. In the blink of an eye, the towering tree was cut in half by Pei Yi's palm blade. What tyrannical power! Everyone below the arena was shocked. The power of senior brother Pei Yi's Qilin sacred body is truly terrifying. Yes, other than senior brother Wang Li, no one can fight him head-on. Indeed, Wu Yan and Wen Tao are the best examples. In terms of physical strength, the Qilin sacred body can be said to be the strongest in the entire martial sect. Boom! The violent impact caused the towering trees to split apart, but at this moment, the world suddenly fell into a gloomy state. The towering tree that had been chopped apart was twisted in a strange way, like a mass of gray clouds that had been mixed together. A dense black shadow quickly enveloped the sky above Pei Yi. Following that, the tree trunk that had exploded actually transformed into a bloody mouth filled with sharp teeth. What? Under countless shocked gazes, the giant tree had turned into a ferocious and terrifying monster. This monster did not have a fixed form, and it did not resemble other demonic beasts. It was like an unknown prehistoric beast transformed from the darkness, like a mass of demonic black fog. An extremely ferocious devouring force erupted from the huge mouth, and Pei Yi was instantly swallowed by the dark monster under the chaotic and twisted black light. All right. As expected of senior brother Wang Li. The eyes of the South Spiritual Peak Academy disciples lit up as they revealed excited expressions. After the huge black demonic monster swallowed Pei Yi, its huge body rapidly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if it wanted to merge together with the person in its stomach. However, in the next moment, an incomparably heavy and violent muffled sound was transmitted to everyone's ears. The black demonic monster's body suddenly emitted a scarlet flame beam. It was like the rays of the sun that pierced through the layers of dark clouds. Rumble, along with the constantly trembling platform, two huge claws covered in solid scales directly pierced through the black monster's body. The incomparably sharp claws forcefully tore apart the huge monster with the power to split the sky. Bang! The rolling waves of blazing flames were like an erupting volcano, and the mighty scarlet waves spread out from the inside out. The black demonic monster was like a cloud that had encountered the light of the sun. It was torn apart inch by inch and dissipated layer by layer. Bang! A heavy sound reverberated, and two sharp claws landed on the platform from the left and right. Under the attentive gazes of countless people that were filled with shock, an illusory Qilin beast image shockingly appeared on the high sky battle arena. Its ferocious might shook the heavens, and its domineering aura filled the air. Pei Yi was inside the Qilin beast, and his entire body seemed to be impregnable. Every inch of his body was protected by absolute defense. "Humph, come out!" Pei Yi snorted coldly, and the Qilin claw on the right side suddenly lifted up and slammed heavily on the ground. Boom! The platform cracked and rubble flew everywhere. A scarlet claw light, like a divine light that tore the earth apart, rushed forward. With a bang sound, the claw light bombarded a cloud of black fog in front of it. In an instant, the black fog immediately burst into a chaotic cyclone. Buzz, the rampant cyclone swirled around the high firmament battle platform and scattered around Pei Yi. A strange power quietly rose, and 6 human silhouettes quietly formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Could this be Senior Sister Qian Ying's doppelganger technique? Oh my God, everyone's moves have been learned by Senior Brother Wang Li. When the audience saw the 6 Wang Lis that appeared, they couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Although it was only created by Wang Li with an illusion, and there was a huge difference in essence, this kind of illusion was enough to achieve the level of passing off the fake as the real one. The 6 Wang Li stood around Pei Yi. Pei Yi, who was in the Qilin Phantom, sneered, "Humph, you have a lot of tricks, but none of them caught my eye." Whoosh! As soon as he said that, the air of heaven and earth rotated, and a strong and cold aura swept in all directions. Immediately afterward, a Tai Chi Yin-Yang 8 trigram array spread out under Pei Yi. This is? The hearts of everyone in the audience trembled. Yi Yao, who was standing with Chu Hen and the others, was also stunned. It was not Qi Qianying's move. It was Yi Yao's. Before everyone could react, the 6 Wang Li, who were standing on the edge of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang array, raised their palms at the same time. An astonishing energy rhythm rapidly condensed. Their palms faced each other, and strands of blue light overflowed from their palms and quickly gathered towards the center of their palms. Pure and vigorous energy was compressed into a ball. The dazzling light overshadowed the world. In the blink of an eye, a rhombus-shaped energy crystal of about 30 centimeters in length appeared in the palms of each Wang Li's hands. Colorful light flowed, and divine light surrounded them. The shocking scene that Yi Yao had displayed before was once again reproduced by Wang Li in the form of an illusion. However, the real scene in front of them and the powerful aura made them wonder if it was an illusion. It was so real that it was terrifying. 6-fold star chest seal. Wang Li spat out a few words clearly. Then, she flipped her palms outward, and the 6 magnificent star jades set off an extremely strong and cold murderous force from different directions, exploding towards Pei Yi in the middle. It was like a 10,000-year-old shooting arrow that streaked across the sky. Wherever it went, the air was torn apart, and the ground split open into 6 deep ravines. In the process of moving, the 6 magnificent star jades became extremely sharp, so sharp that they were like divine rays. It looked almost no different from the North Star art that Yi Yao had displayed. Even the aura was almost exactly the same. If it was anyone else, they would probably not be able to help but treat it as a real magnificent star jade, and not an illusion. Pei Ye's pupils shrank slightly, and traces of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. I don't care if it's real or fake. Don't even think about breaking my defense. The Qilin beast shadow that enveloped his body shone brilliantly, and a lava-like spirit pattern appeared on its body. Its huge claws furiously lifted up, and a rapidly spinning storm vortex erupted from Pei Ye's body. Boom! It was earth-shattering, and its momentum pierced through the sky. The 6 light beams were like divine swords, and they launched a violent and terrifying collision with the raging red storm. In an instant, the red wave and the blue light beam intertwined and shot into the sky. The entire numinous sky fighting platform shook, and the entire place exploded. The layers of broken stone bricks were all turned into powder, and the aftermath of the raging power swept across the protective light screen below the platform. Circles of rippling halos splashed out. Even with the protection of the protective shield, there were still countless people below the platform who were shaken by the violent cyclone. Their blood boiled, and they could not stand steadily. Everyone's eyes widened and their hearts trembled. Even the many high-level elders and masters of the peak courtyard on Xingqing Peak were amazed. The Qilin divine body is extraordinary domineering, while the 1,000 illusion sacred body is unpredictable. It's really hard to tell who's stronger. Dongxian Peak Master Ao Yinzhuang sighed softly. Ning Qiushui, the South Spirit Peak Master, and Situ Song, the West Dome Peak Master, looked solemn. Would Wang Li be the champion? Or would Pei Yi be aiming for the throne? Even they could not come to a conclusion for the time being. The violent storm swept across the entire platform, and everyone below the platform did not even dare to blink, afraid that they would miss something. After a series of violent clashes, Wang Li's doppelgangers were all destroyed, leaving only his main body hovering in the air. Meanwhile, the Qilin silhouette outside Pei Ye's body became extremely ethereal, like a thin layer of gauze. It seemed like it would shatter with a light touch. These 2 people are really too powerful. It's hard to tell who's stronger. However, based on the current situation, senior brother Wang Li's situation might be a little awkward. Yes, I think so too. Senior brother Wang Li's illusion technique is very spectacular, and it almost covers the entire area. If this goes on, his physical strength will be greatly consumed. Although powerhouses at the ancient eternity stage could condense a saint's soul in their true origin purple palace that could continuously produce true origin energy, the power produced by the saint's soul would gradually be unable to keep up with the pace if it was continuously consumed in a large area. Of course, the power that Pei Yi unleashed was no less than Wang Li's. However, the former's Qilin sacred body had the upper hand in terms of strength. If they continued to compete in strength, the 1,000 illusion sacred body would not be able to compete with the Qilin sacred body in the later stages. Just as the people below the platform were whispering to each other, an obscure wave of energy emitted from Wang Li's body. Following that, a layer of illusory white halo quietly appeared outside his body. The halo enveloped his body like a bubble, and beautiful mysterious runes flowed and flickered outside the halo. What was even more shocking was that the strange halo was actually solidifying at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the aura it emitted was gradually stabilizing and becoming stronger. Chapter 1243. That's South spiritual art? A trembling voice came from the crowd. In an instant, the entire audience was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky above the high heaven platform. The illusory white halo was like a circular light shield, enveloping Wang Li's body. Brilliant rays of light that looked like divine patterns flowed and flickered around the halo. Waves of strange power gradually became stronger. At the same time, the halo around Wang Li's body became more and more solid, and the swaying light patterns on it actually turned into a dark red color. The blazing heat wave spread out, but it also contained a bit of the aura of Pei Ye's Qilin sacred body. Pei Yi, who was in the huge Qilin shadow, narrowed his eyes and raised the corners of his mouth, forming a cold arc. You're finally willing to use the South spiritual art. I almost thought you weren't going to use it. You're wrong again. Wang Li raised her eyebrows slightly, and a hint of pride appeared in her eyes. From the beginning, I've been using the South spiritual art. What? Everyone in the audience was startled. As his voice fell, the white halo around Wang Li's body suddenly shone brightly, and an extremely powerful force filled the air. Countless scarlet-red light patterns revolved around the ring of light, and in an instant, the white ring of light actually turned into a flame-like red. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the space around Wang Li distorted violently, and tens of thousands of flames danced between the heavens and the earth like a rain. Every inch of the halo that enveloped Wang Li seemed to contain the most violent and destructive power. The mountain-like pressure shook the entire audience. This is? Looking at the dragon-like crimson light patterns around Wang Li's body, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Senior brother Pei Ye's power? To be precise, it's the power that was broken down by the South spiritual art and reintegrated. Oh my God, isn't this too abnormal? Feeling the powerful power fluctuation on Wang Li's body, Chu Hen's eyes also surged with a trace of surprise. This is the power that has been transformed by the South spiritual art. Wu Yan, who was at the side, saw the doubt in Chu Hen and the others, and immediately explained. Convert. The people around him were stunned. Wu Yan nodded solemnly. The Southern spiritual spell is a supreme martial art that is both offensive and defensive. Its most miraculous feature is that it can decompose an opponent's attack. The power that is decomposed will condense on the surface and form a spherical energy ring. The more power that is decomposed, the more powerful the energy ring will be. This power can be used for both offense and defense. It can even be fused with one's true inner force to form a higher level of attack. After listening to Wu Yan's explanation, everyone couldn't help but feel enlightened. In other words, the further we go, the more energy the Southern spiritual art decomposes, the stronger the energy it fuses? Zhao Qingyi asked in a low voice. Yes. Wu Yan affirmed. Therefore, when dealing with someone who has mastered the Southern spiritual incantation, you can't give him too much power. Otherwise, you will be the one embarrassed in the end. The best way is to end the battle quickly. The Southern spiritual art's powerful disintegration ability could be said to be stronger the further one progressed. This also happened to make up for the deficiency of the Thousand Illusion Holy Body in the later stage of the Kylin Holy Body. However, what was unexpected was that from the beginning, Wang Li had already used his powerful illusion power as a cover and secretly activated the Southern spiritual art. In other words, the opponent had been continuously decomposing and fusing Pei Ye's energy attack. Everyone couldn't help but have an epiphany. No wonder Wang Li was so wantonly squandering his true inner force, layer after layer, continuously creating all kinds of gorgeous and spectacular illusion attacks. The main reason was to allow Pei Yi to continuously explode with powerful attacks and continuously transfer his own energy to the Southern spiritual art to decompose. So that's how it is. Qiu Xingyi, who was on Xingqing Peak, nodded his head. There was a hint of approval in between his handsome brows. What a great diversion, crossing the sea by deceiving everyone. As expected of Senior Wang Li, we were all kept in the dark. After decomposing so much energy, he will definitely win. Haha, Senior Wang Li will definitely win. After coming to a realization, everyone could be said to be full of admiration for Wang Li. A series of gorgeous illusion attacks turned out to be just a cover for the Southern spiritual art. Buzz buzz. Restless majestic auras intertwined and collided with each other in the void. The spherical halo that lingered around Wang Li's body was as dazzling as the sun. He looked at Pei Yi below. The corner of his mouth slightly raised, and he said, "It seems that you have miscalculated again." Heh! Pei Yi smiled coldly, and a cold light burst out from his eyes. "It is indeed a little unexpected, but you are laughing too early. You have the southern spiritual art, do you think I don't have it too?" Rumble, in an instant, the 9 heavens changed, and the wind and clouds surged. Pei Yi raised one hand to the sky, and an unprecedented monstrous and terrifying aura suddenly rose from his body. In the sky above the Lingshao platform where dark clouds rolled, an incomparably dazzling golden light suddenly burst out from the vast nebula. Everyone's pupils constricted to the size of a needle tip. Every face was as bright as a piece of white paper under the light. The unshakable destructive power poured down, and thousands of large light pillars that were like divine light heavenly swords pierced the sky. Heaven's Blade. Western Sky Technique. Heaven's Blade. The heavy voice was like thunder, shaking everyone's heart. The earth-shattering divine light pillars tore the sky apart, and with the power to break the sky, they directly covered the entire Lingshao platform. High up in the sky, Wang Li's eyes turned cold. He put his palms together, and the red spherical halo that lingered around him immediately burst out and expanded rapidly. Southern Sky Transformation. Southern Spiritual Art. Southern Sky Transformation. Buzz, the spherical halo that expanded by several times was like a rapidly enlarging star, and the red flame that constantly leaked out was like a nebula halo. Boundless rich radiance blossomed from all sides. Boom! Bang! A series of violent forces arrived, and the nebula collided. The incomparably spectacular scene was like a divine punishment from the heavens, bombarding the stars and meteorites. It covered the sky and the earth, destroying the universe. In an instant, the entire Lingshao platform seemed to be hit by a heavenly sword. Countless rocks collapsed, and cracks burst out. The protective light curtains under the stage were constantly being hit by fierce attacks, and numerous cracks appeared on them. Everyone outside the platform clenched their fists. They were frightened, and they didn't even dare to breathe. In the blink of an eye, the huge Lingshao platform was already riddled with holes, like a beehive, and not a single intact brick could be found. If this wasn't a specially made platform, it would probably have been smashed into pieces. Even so, the entire battle platform was directly destroyed beyond recognition. Meanwhile, in the sky, where Wang Li was, the huge ball-shaped energy body emitted an extremely uneasy turbulence after withstanding the violent impact. The light patterns on its surface flickered, and its aura was extremely chaotic. He blocked it. Everyone below the platform had solemn expressions, and they were extremely surprised. Strange, why didn't senior brother Pei Yi gather the power that erupted from the West Sky Technique? If he gathered it at a single point, senior brother Wang Li definitely wouldn't be able to block it so easily. It's very simple, because what we're seeing now might be an illusion created by senior brother Wang Li. I understand now. The reason why senior brother Pei Yi covered the entire platform with the West Sky Technique is to prevent people from being deceived by the illusion. The boundary of Wang Li's thousand illusion sacred physique was unpredictable, and it was difficult to distinguish what was real from what was fake. If Wang Li in the sky was formed by an illusion, then Pei Yi would have wasted the West Sky Technique's powerful killer move for nothing. Moreover, he had spread the West Sky Technique's power out and covered the entire platform, so no matter where Wang Li hid, he wouldn't be able to escape the attack of the Heaven's Blade. Of course, the West Sky Technique's power had spread out, and its range had expanded. At the same time, its lethality had also been distributed. So it couldn't break through Wang Li's defense with a single attack. Just at this moment, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering sound reverberated through the sky. The huge energy sphere that was floating in the sky had directly exploded from the center, It was like a nebula vortex had exploded, and all sorts of chaotic and powerful energy shot out wantonly. Everyone below the platform calmed down, and even the Academy Masters couldn't help but reveal cautious expressions. Wang Li stood in the air and looked down at Pei Yi with admiration. "I have to say, you really amaze me. But it's a pity that you'll still lose in the end." As soon as he finished speaking, a transcendent aura that was several times stronger than before spread out from Wang Li's body, and the chaotic and majestic energy that leaked out gathered in front of him. Like a whale sucking in water, in an instant, a solid white halo appeared around his body again. Everyone was shocked again and again. Even the West Sky Peak Master, Sidhu Song, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Chapter 1244. Ancient Realm, Rank 9. Feeling the powerful aura emanating from Wang Li, the expressions of everyone inside and outside of Xingqing Peak changed drastically. The masters of the 4 peak academies all had solemn looks on their faces, but they all had different expressions. The biggest contrast was the South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui and the West Sky Peak Master Sidhu Song. This was a battle that would decide who would be the champion. It was hard for anyone to remain calm. The eyes of everyone from the South Spirit Peak Academy flashed with excitement, as if victory was already in sight. Rank 9. Ancient Realm, Senior Brother Wang Li is indeed the #1 genius of our South Spirit Peak Academy. He's going to win. Senior Brother Wang Li is the champion. In comparison, the expressions of the West Sky Peak disciples were gloomy and uneasy. Above the void, the chaotic energy that filled the sky and earth converged towards Wang Li's body like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. Outside his body, a solidified white spherical halo appeared once again. Wang Li looked down at Pei Yi indifferently. His palms faced each other, and a steady stream of majestic energy fused together. "This time, I'm disintegrating the power of the West Sky technique." His slightly high-pitched voice was filled with pride. The powerful aura of a Rank 9 Ancient Realm was like a mountain. "Don't celebrate too early." At the same time, the qilin that shrouded Pei Yi immediately became real. Its sturdy body, huge claws, and dense scales were especially exquisite. Roar! The low roar contained an innate noble majesty. At this moment, everyone only felt that a living qilin had appeared between heaven and earth. Blazing flames rose, and the scorching air wave caused the surrounding space to faintly distort. It was obvious. Pei Yi did not intend to give up. 2 powerful auras collided in the air. The invisible pressure made everyone feel as if they were shouldering a heavy burden. Wang Li's eyes turned cold, and the violent energy between his palms was as fierce as the undercurrent of the deep sea. "Let's end it here." Divine Spirit Seal. Buzz, the rapid trembling of the airflow caused the space to feel uneasy. In an instant, a white pillar of light pierced through the sky like a world-destroying divine light, directly slashing down towards Pei Yi below, a strong gust of wind. Chaotic cyclones disturbed the air. As it moved, the white beam of light rapidly expanded, instantly turning into a blade of light that was thousands of feet long. Circles of flowing light patterns revolved around it, displaying a destructive power. This attack was an explosive attack that had been dissected from the West Sky art and fused with Wang Li's own true origin energy. Everyone could feel the terrifying godly might that pierced through heaven and earth. Pei Yi, who was below, felt as if he was facing a meteor that was falling from the heavens. However, a scorching flame danced in his eyes. Roar! The ferocious qilin beast that shrouded him suddenly set off scorching flames that soared into the sky. It flew up like an ancient ferocious beast facing the punishment of the heavens, and rushed out fearlessly. Hiss! An unprecedented violent explosion spread between heaven and earth, and the 2 most violent forces collided head-on in the sky above the high heaven platform. In an instant it was as if 2 meteorites had collided in the sky above the battle platform. For a moment, the flaming storm that engulfed the heavens and the earth was mixed with the incomparably majestic halo, and it immediately spread in all directions, boom, bang. It was as if a storm had arrived and lightning had converged. At this moment, the spectating platforms around the entire stellar peak trembled, and the high sky combat platform within it even shook intensely and uneasily. The platform, which was already riddled with holes, suddenly seemed to have encountered a volcanic tsunami. Rumble, with a series of violent explosions, the huge high heaven battle platform directly broke from the middle, splitting into two. Numerous cracks and faults continued to stack up, and the entire arena directly exploded. The surrounding defensive shield was covered with cracks, like broken ice crystal glass, which made people worry that it would collapse at any time. The entire inner area of the high heaven battle platform had completely fallen into a hurricane circle of power. The behemoth-like flame Qilin and the giant pillar of light that exuded a destructive power constantly bloomed layers of violent shock waves, like infinitely expanding water ripples. It wantonly rushed in all directions. The most tense moment made people restless. Other than sect master Dongfang Hingji, almost all of the higher-ups and elders stood up and watched intently. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Chu Hen, Wu Yan, and the other geniuses all had solemn expressions on their faces. Who would win? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky in front of them. And just when most people thought that Wang Li was about to suppress it, Pei Ye's aura suddenly multiplied, and scarlet light pillars soared into the sky. Humph! Do you think that you're the only one who broke through to the ninth order of the eternal realm? As soon as these words came out, everyone's heartstrings couldn't help but tremble. Roar! Along with a roar that shook the heavens, the ferocious Qilin suddenly opened its huge mouth, and then a huge golden ball of light shot out. The golden ball of light that contained extremely pure and powerful energy burst out in the form of a shock wave. Bang! An earth-shaking explosion resounded, and the giant light pillar that was formed from the Western Sky Technique's power directly exploded, collapsing between heaven and earth. What? All the South Spirit Peak Academy's disciples' hearts sank. The majestic golden-colored energy ball pierced through the air. It easily penetrated the layers of energy vortexes and directly charged in front of Wang Li. The latter's pupils shrank and her face turned pale. Boom! The golden shock wave exploded in front of the opponent, and a vast and violent chaotic wave of air covered the sky, spreading under the sky. The violent shock wave continued to spread out, and Wang Li fluttered in the sky like a goose feather. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have fallen into a state of deathly stillness. Wang Li held her chest with one hand, and blood continuously flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Frost and dust filled the sky like a misty rain. Every single audience member who supported Wang Li felt their hearts sink to the bottom of the valley. "Heh, looks like the one who lost is you." A cold laughter quietly spread out, and everyone's heart trembled once again. Wang Li's pupils shrank, and her sharp pupils reflected a cold and emotionless face. A disdainful and mocking smile appeared on the other party's face. Bang! Another heavy sound rang out, and a brilliant scarlet light rippled out in the sky. In an instant, Wang Li directly turned into a beam of light and flew down. Bang! Chapter 1245. Bang! A heavy sound reverberated on the left side of the broken battle stage, shaking the hearts of everyone present. Rocks flew everywhere, and the cold wind whistled. At this moment, the originally majestic high-sky battle stage was already in a mess. There wasn't a single intact brick on the entire stage. The ground was full of holes and potholes. Between heaven and earth there was a scorching cyclone wave, and the sky was filled with dust. The inside and outside of Star Peak fell into silence. The South Spirit Peak Academy disciples stared at the stage in front of them. Peak Master Ning Qiushui's eyes also faintly glowed a little. Although she didn't want to believe it, it seemed to be a foregone conclusion. High up in the sky, Pei Yi stood there alone. His expression was indifferent, and his body exuded a unique and domineering aura. On the broken left side of the battle stage, the dissipating dust gradually dissipated, and a gloomy young figure stood there. Their positions were like a high and mighty monarch and a king standing under the main hall. Senior Brother Wang Li? The eyes of the South Spirit Peak Academy disciples trembled. Although there was still a trace of hope in their eyes, it was undeniable that they had never seen such a desolate Wang Li before. His usual laziness, carelessness, and cynicism were all gone. His pale face and eyes were filled with unwillingness and powerlessness. Subsequently, Wang Li's body trembled violently. Wah! A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out from his mouth. His legs staggered and he fell to the ground on one knee. Senior Brother Wang Li. A few of the South Spirit Peak Academy disciples were shocked as they hurriedly flew onto the stage to help the other party up. And at this moment, it also announced Wang Li's defeat. Wang Li lost. The Thousand Illusion Saint Physique, who was ranked second on the Sky Marshal list, lost to the Qilin Saint Physique, who was ranked third. The champion of the previous sect battle was finally unable to win 2 consecutive sect battles. The feeling of loss was like the rising tide, quickly spreading throughout the entire South Spirit Peak Academy. The West Sky Peak Academy's side gradually became excited, and each of them revealed a look of excitement. Senior Brother Pei Yi won. Congratulations, Senior Brother Pei Yi. West Sky Peak Academy will win. One side was melancholy, while the other side was excited. The winner was king and the loser was bandit. At this moment, Pei Yi and Wang Li became the clearest contrast. Congratulations, Peak Leader Situ. The chief disciple of the West Sky Peak Academy really lives up to his reputation. On the side of Xingqing Peak, there were already many higher-ups and elders that had started to congratulate Situ Song. The latter had a beaming smile on his face, and the space between his brows was filled with pride and complacency. Apart from mysterious East Peak Master Ao Yun Manor, South Spirit Peak Master and North Star Peak Master had ugly expressions on their faces. Wu Yen and Wang Li, the top disciples of the 2 great peak academies, had both lost to Pei Yi. How could they be happy? Senior Brother Pei Yi is really strong. He defeated Wu Yen, Wen Tao, Wang Li, and many other top disciples. He's definitely aiming for the championship. I finally got what I wanted. Amidst the jubilant clamor, Pei Yi was like a bright moon held up by the stars. He looked down at Wang Li from above. This time you will kneel before me. His mocking voice contained a lot of sarcasm. Wang Li's hands trembled as she clenched her fists. The unwillingness in her eyes finally dissipated. Her internal organs were all injured, and she was unable to fight anymore. Several South Spirit Peak Academy disciples had gloomy expressions. However, they did not dare to say anything. They could only help Wang Li back to the arena. Buzz buzz. Waves of obscure energy ripples spread out in the world, and the 2 halves of the soaring firmament battle platform slowly fused together. The shattered stone bricks and mud also gathered from all directions, quickly filling up the potholes on the platform. The arena for the sect battle was specially built. This high-sky battle platform was a floating platform created with the Heaven and Earth Integration Array as the foundation. No matter how badly it was destroyed, it could be restored to its original state. Hundreds of millions of stones merged together in an orderly manner, like a gathering of tens of thousands of meteorites. In next to no time, a grand and flat arena appeared once more before everyone's eyes. However, at this moment, there was only one person left on the high-sky battle platform. Senior Brother Pei Yi, champion. Years of sharpening a sword, vowing to seize the monarch's throne, West Sky Peak Academy is the strongest. Tens of thousands of people watched. The momentum was monstrous. In everyone's eyes, Pei Yi had already reached the peak of this sect battle. Elder Lu, who was the host of the competition, nodded his head in approval. He then announced loudly, "First of all, congratulations to West Sky Peak Academy's Pei Yi for being ranked second on the Heavenly Marshal list." Hua! The entire arena was filled with celebration. All sorts of cheers could be heard. Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao and the rest all secretly shook their heads. Although they did not like Pei Yi, they had to admit that he was indeed very strong. Then, Elder Lu's gaze turned towards the southern viewing platform. However, at this moment, a majestic aura, along with a raging battle intent, suddenly spread out in the sky above the high sky battle platform. Everyone's heart jumped. Qiu Xingyi, the three words that were as heavy as thunder directly impacted everyone's eardrums. Pei Ye's gaze was like a sword as he raised his finger and pointed towards the extraordinary young figure on top of the star peak. If you don't wait now, then when? You, how dare you fight me? Boom! There seemed to be thunder crisscrossing between heaven and earth, and the rapid airflow was like a whirlwind that whistled through the entire arena. In an instant, everyone's eyes were all fixed on Qiu Xingyi's position. First on the heavenly martial list. No one could have imagined it. Elder Lu was taken aback. After a brief moment of shock, the situation instantly went out of control. Everyone in the arena shouted loudly, "Qiu Xingyi, accept the challenge! Qiu Xingyi, accept the challenge!" The fiery atmosphere directly exploded, and the atmosphere of the sect battle was directly pushed to an unprecedented height. The 8 Peak Academy lords were all stunned. Even sect master Dongfang Hengji's eyes flashed with a touch of light. Second on the heavenly martial list. It was far from satisfying Pei Ye's ambition. Defeating Wang Li was also not his goal. The position that Pei Yi really wanted to replace was there. "Qiu Xingyi, do you dare to fight?" Pei Yi once again provoked. The sky was filled with cheers like a storm. "Qiu Xingyi, Qiu Xingyi! Pei Yi, Pei Yi!" The supporters of both sides set off waves after waves of monstrous voices. Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the injured Wang Li all looked cautiously at the young figure on the Xingqing peak. Everyone's heart was in their throats. At this moment, everyone had forgotten the existence of another person. All of them had forgotten that it was not the final of the sect battle that had just ended. In Pei Ye's eyes, at this moment, except for Qiu Xingyi, no one else could enter his eyes. Everyone else was ignored. At this moment, Elder Lu also acquiesced to the current situation and gave full control of the stage to Pei Yi and Qiu Xingyi. Everyone's attention, the heart of the storm. Looking at Pei Ye's provocative eyes that were full of fighting spirit, Qiu Xingyi's handsome eyebrows slightly raised, and the corner of his mouth raised into a proud arc immediately, he slowly took a step forward. In an instant, everyone's heart seemed to be about to jump out of their chests. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly, and they were extremely excited. However, just at this moment, a heavy and shocking explosion reverberated from the soaring heaven arena without any warning. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. A long spear flickering with dark blue lightning bolts fell diagonally on the ring. It was an incomparably sharp spear with a dragon-like spine in the middle. Fierce lightning flowed up and down, emitting a cold aura. The tip of the spear pierced the stone tiles on the ground, and deep cracks spread out like a spider web. What was going on? This scene caused everyone to frown. When they saw the spear on the ring, the expressions of Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang changed. At the same time, Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, and the others suddenly realized that Chu Hen, who had been standing beside them, had disappeared. Buzz. Waves of air spread out from the high heaven battle ring like ripples on the water surface. A slightly thin and slender figure quietly stepped onto the high heaven battle ring. With every step he took, a slight airflow rippled in the air. Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion. Even the 8 Peak courtyard masters had a serious look on their faces. The figure walked to the center of the high heaven battle ring and raised his deep eyes. 2 rays of cold light swept directly towards Pei Yi in the air. "Your opponent is me. Opponent! It's me." There was no emotion in the indifferent tone, but the arrogant expression on his face did not hide the provocation. Whoosh! What followed was an uproar and a lot of cursing from the audience. "What's going on? Do you think you're qualified to fight? Trash that relies on women to advance. Why are you causing trouble here? Get down. Get down, don't waste everyone's time here. No one would have thought that just as Qiu Xingyi took his first step, a cold spear would suddenly pierce through the stage. Even more so, no one would have thought that Chu Hen, who was almost forgotten by everyone, would step onto the soaring cloud arena in such a manner. Without a doubt, Chu Hen's actions had directly aroused the anger of everyone present. Bastard, why are you trying to show your presence? Why aren't you going down? We want to see the pinnacle battle between Qiu Xingyi and senior brother Pei Yi. Are you King stupid? Get out of here. The eyes of the disciples of the East Profound Peak Courtyard and the West Sky Peak Courtyard were red with anger. They could not wait to rush onto the stage and kick Chu Hen out. Even the people of the Beichen Peak Courtyard shook their heads. This guy is hopeless. Doesn't he know how he got into the finals? He's so troublesome. What is this Chu Hen doing? Wu Mian was also so angry that he kept stomping his feet under the stage. Wu Yen sighed softly. Previously, he had clearly reminded Chu Hen that if he encountered Pei Yi, he should not fight him. Just a moment ago, he was still secretly rejoicing that Pei Yi had found Qiu Xingyi and ignored Chu Hen. However, he never would have thought that Chu Hen would actually appear at this time. Not only would he arouse public anger, but he would also humiliate himself. However, Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang did not seem to think too much about it. The two girls only looked at the stage silently. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, Elder Lu could not help but feel a little embarrassed. He opened his mouth and said, "Beichen Peak Courtyard's Chu Hen, please. I entered the finals, so I have the right to fight for the championship, right?" Chu Hen replied indifferently. Elder Lu was instantly speechless. Although he said that, in the eyes of the crowd, he was not worthy of being in the finals at all. Haha, the disciples of the Beichen Peak Courtyard are really interesting. The West Sky Peak Master, Sidu Song, laughed lightly. Yuan Shang's face darkened. He originally thought that the Beichen Peak Courtyard was no longer involved, but in the end, he was ridiculed because of Chu Hen. It was really unpleasant. In addition to being annoyed, he also found Chu Hen more and more unpleasant to the eye. You want to die so badly? A disdainful smile unfolded on Pei Ye's face as he looked at Chu Hen below as if he was looking at an ant. I originally intended to let you go, but I didn't expect you to not know how to appreciate favors. It truly makes me very unhappy. A cold intent accompanied by a powerful pressure assaulted down. The bricks under Chu Hen's body split open. However, Chu Hen's legs did not bend at all, and he replied with a light gaze. But I don't want to let you go, whoosh. Another wave of curses resounded below the stage. I've really never seen such a shameless thing. He relied on a woman to advance and still dares to speak so arrogantly? Senior brother Pei Yi, cripple him. That's right, let him know how high the heavens are. Chu Hen seemed as if he did not hear the curses below the stage, and he still stared coldly at Pei Yi. As you wish. Ha 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 ha. Pei Yi laughed instead of getting angry, and then a ghastly light erupted from his eyes while his tone was piercingly cold. As you wish. OM. The airflow suddenly trembled, and Pei Yi instantly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, an extremely ferocious gale assaulted Chu Hen from behind. You can die now. An icy cold voice resounded, and then Pei Ye's heavy legs swept towards Chu Hen's head. A vortex whistled while a scarlet light revolved around it. This strike contained the might of a thunderbolt. Everyone below the stage seemed to have already seen Chu Hen die on the spot. Many people felt that their anger had been vented. However, just when Pei Ye's steel-like leg was about to strike Chu Hen's head, Chu Hen somersaulted in midair and dodged it. He dodged? Everyone was stunned. Subsequently, Chu Hen, who'd somersaulted in midair, directly swept his heavy leg against Pei Ye's shoulder. Bang! A loud explosion resounded, and a wave of energy shot into the sky while rocks shattered. The pupils of everyone present trembled violently. A scene that had never happened in their wildest dreams struck their optic nerve. A powerful circle of black light surged out from the platform, and it traversed through the crater that was dozens of meters deep. Pei Yi smashed heavily onto the ground and smashed deep into the platform. Chapter 1246. Boom! A violent and vigorous circle of light swept out in all directions like a wave on the surface of the water. The soaring sky fighting platform, which had just been restored for a short while, once again sank into a deep pit that was tens of meters wide. Bricks and stones exploded, and a shock wave soared into the sky. Along with every pair of trembling pupils in the audience, Pei Yi heavily crashed into the ground from mid-air, as if deeply embedded into the platform. What? Rumble! The appearance of this scene directly impacted the hearts of everyone present like a storm, and an earth-shattering thunder sounded in their minds. Even their souls could not help but throb. Oh my God! Countless martial ancestor sect disciples widened their eyes and covered their faces with their hand. The West Dome Peak Master Sidhu Song and the North Star Peak Master Yuan Shang suddenly stood up. One was shocked and furious. The other was shocked. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yan, and all the other martial ancestor sect geniuses were completely stunned. This guy. Wu Mian's hands unconsciously trembled. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai beside him were also similar, as if they had witnessed the most terrifying scene. Rubble crumbled and cracks spread. The invisible sharp aura was like the cold spear standing on the other side of the soaring sky platform. Bang! A heavy sound rang out once again, and Chu Hen heavily landed on the ground. It was as if he had been crushed by a force of 10,000 caddies. The ferocious and powerful impact lifted the sky, and Pei Yi, who had smashed into the ground, was directly jolted out. There was no hesitation. There was no time for the audience to recover. Chu Hen turned sideways and raised his leg, once again kicking towards Pei Ye's chest. Pei Ye's pupils constricted, and he crossed his arms in front of him. A powerful flame-like true origin energy rose from his body, and his crossed arms were immediately covered with a layer of raging flames. "Get lost!" he shouted in a stern voice. Bang! As soon as his voice fell, a circle of scarlet flames mixed with a dense black glow spread out vertically on the platform. Even though Pei Ye's strength was fierce and domineering, he was still sent flying by Chu Hen's kick. Hiss! Oh my God! Everyone was shocked again and again, and their expressions changed again and again. Pei Yi, who was sent flying, dragged his feet along the surface of the table. The stone tiles under his feet continuously exploded, and he dragged out a ravine that was nearly 100 meters long before he finally stopped. You? Pei Ye's eyes widened in anger as he stared in astonishment at the young figure who hadn't moved a single step. Chu Hen raised his head, and the outline of his handsome face revealed a heart-shaking ruthlessness. Chi, a mass of violent, dark blue lightning streaked out from Chu Hen's right palm, and the dazzling lightning quickly gathered in the center of his palm. He stared coldly at Pei Yi. A monstrous king's domineering aura shook the entire audience. Pei Qingfeng, I'm going to skin you alive today. The sound was like thunder, striking straight into the soul. At this moment, Chu Hen stunned the world. The martial arts sect disciples who had scolded him earlier could not help but tremble. His words didn't seem to be directed at Pei Yi alone. Everyone from Beichen Peak Academy also shut their mouths, and their eyes were filled with many emotions. Qi Qianying, who was below the stage, could not help but be stunned as she felt the hostility from Chu Hen's body. Her eyes were filled with a complicated look. It seemed like her forfeiting in the semi-finals was not a mistake. On the high cloud arena, their gazes were like sharp arrows, filled with cold light. The corner of Pei Ye's mouth drew back, revealing a ruthless smile. Not bad. It's a little more interesting than I imagined, humph. Chu Hen replied with a cold smile. See you in the finals. You didn't disappoint me either. Chi, after saying that, Chu Hen reached out with one palm to the ground, and dozens of majestic dark blue lightning streaked along the surface of the stage like dragons and snakes towards his opponent at an extremely fast speed. Everywhere they went, the floor tiles exploded, and the stone platform collapsed. Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and killing intent surged in his eyes. Arrogant to the extreme. Roar, a resonant and impassioned beast roar shook the surroundings. Pei Ye's already robust body became tall and sturdy once more. The blood vessels on his arms bulged, and his 5 fingers became sharp and sharp. Moreover, dense and thick crimson scales appeared on his body, making him look like 2 Qilin arms. Stupid trash, I want your life. With a wave of one arm, a piercingly cold blazing pillar of fire slashed down like a flaming cloud blade. Along with the platform that had been split apart, the lightning pillar that was flying towards him was also cut apart. Pei Ye's figure moved, and immediately turned into an afterimage, rushing towards Chu Hen. As he moved, Pei Ye's body quickly transformed into an indestructible red shadow blade, tearing the air apart, and the air waves whistled. The martial ancestor sect disciples below the stage narrowed their eyes. Everyone clearly remembered that not long ago, during the battle for the top 4, when Tao's killing move was instantly shattered by Pei Ye's move, the menacing red shadow blade was like the light of the shadow wings that could destroy everything. However, Chu Hen did not even move an inch. A black-colored light quickly surged out of his body and covered his entire body, as if it was the eerie 9 underworld fire. A punch was thrown out. The black fist radiance was like a ferocious tiger as it collided head-on with the shadow blade that was about to explode forth. Bang! An incomparably violent power immediately surged and exploded between the two. 2 different colored light pillars then soared into the sky. The chaotic aftershock waves wantonly spread in all directions. It was comparable to the terrifying collision between mountains, causing the entire arena to explode. Everyone's faces quietly turned pale. The few peak courtyard masters on Xingqing Peak also frowned, because they saw that the red shadow light that lingered around Pei Yi was directly smashed by Chu Hen's fist radiance. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. If Pei Yi was at a disadvantage because of carelessness before, then this time, he was directly suppressed in terms of explosive power, and it was under the situation of a head-on confrontation. His cultivation is Ancient Time Realm, 7th Order. Ao Yunzhuang, the master of Dongxian Peak, said with a deep look in his eyes. 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? Whoosh. Everyone was stunned. There was actually an entire 2 levels of difference between Chu Hen and Pei Ye's cultivation. Even so, everyone was incomparably shocked. 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? He had only entered the sect for less than 2 years. What kind of speed was this? 7th Order? 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? Even Wu Mian, who had the most contact with Chu Hen, was dumbfounded. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were also especially shocked, and they secretly shook their heads. They remembered that during the entrance test in the Drifting Star State, Chu Hen's cultivation level was not even as high as theirs. Bang! Boom! In the fighting ring, the 2 figures with peerless auras constantly burst forth with all kinds of violent sounds of power colliding. Layer after layer of ripples splashed between heaven and earth. However, the shocking thing was that Pei Yi was not able to gain the slightest advantage in every head-on collision. He was almost completely suppressed by Chu Hen. Bang! The 2 of them collided head-on, and the black fist instantly pierced through the powerful flames that covered the Qilin's palm. Pei Yi immediately felt his arm tremble, and the tendons and bones in his body trembled. In his shock and anger, he attacked again. His arm turned into a palm again, and a solid ball of fire rapidly spun in his palm. At the same time, a black spiral vortex also circled around Chu Hen's palm. Bang! It was another fierce head-on collision. The moment the fist and palm collided, a violent burst of flames exploded. At the same time, Chu Hen's powerful arm released a terrifying hidden force that was like a deep-sea undercurrent. Pei Ye's pupils constricted, and he immediately felt a huge impact flow through his arm and into his entire body. Bang! Waves of air flew everywhere, and Pei Yi was once again sent flying hundreds of meters away. Chapter 1247. Is this the Qilin sacred body that is known as the martial ancestor realm's strongest power? Can't even withstand a single blow. Looking at Pei Yi, who was sent flying by Chu Hen's attack, and then hearing his words, everyone present felt their scalps go numb. Pei Yi was similarly endlessly furious. His two eyes narrowed, and as he flew backwards, he extended a single palm. 1. A scarlet pillar of fire that was as ferocious as a tide exploded towards Chu Hen like a dragon emerging from the sea. Shut up! The blazing wave covered the sky and covered the earth. As it moved, the crimson pillar of fire constantly released an extremely sharp aura of destruction. From afar, it looked like a giant sword burning with substantial flames. Lightning flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Chi-chi, the incomparably manic energy ripples caused the space to become restless and uneasy. The high-pitched sound was like the cry of a thunderbird. Chu Hen flipped his palm over, and in an instant, a majestic lightning pillar shot out like an aurora. One was as breathtaking as a divine rainbow. One was as resplendent as the sky. Clang! Two violent forces, one red and one blue, collided with each other. Suddenly, lightning and fire blossomed, and light patterns filled the sky. However, in the next moment, the sturdy lightning pillar released by Chu Hen was quickly split apart by the powerful fire pillar. Chu Hen was slightly surprised. Immediately after, the tip of the flaming pillar rapidly became incomparably sharp. Under the swirling spiral of light beams, a domineering halberd directly shot out from the flaming pillar. The halberd was about 2.5 meters long, and its entire body was engraved with dark red tool patterns. The edge of the halberd flickered with a cold light, and there were curved blades on both sides. It's the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd. The crowd below the stage cried out in alarm. The Qilin Blood Divine Halberd. A powerful divine weapon that surpassed a saint weapon. Combined with the bloodline limit of the Qilin sacred body, it could infinitely explode with terrifying destructive power. Below the stage, Wang Li, who was being supported by two people, had a slightly gloomy expression. He could not help but clench his fists. Pei Yi hadn't used the Qilin's blood halberd at all during their battle, but now, he was forced to use it by Chu Hen in just a few moves. It was easy to imagine how much he felt right now. Clang! Thunder roared and lightning illuminated the sky. The Qilin blood halberd was like a hot knife through butter. Like a ray of divine light going against the flow, it split apart the boundless lightning pillar in succession, and its momentum did not decrease as it charged towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen raised his eyes slightly and waved his palms like brushing willows. A wisp of vigorous true qi swirled in his palms and spread out. It then transformed into a solid light screen shield in front of him. Bang! True essence surged and light bloomed. When the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd encountered the light screen, it immediately stopped in midair. At the same time, Pei Yi suddenly set off a monstrous momentum and flew over. His palm, which was as powerful as a fierce beast, firmly grasped the end of the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd. With a push of his arm, a violent impact surged out. Boom! The piercingly cold, killing intent directly caused the light barrier in front of Chu Hen to explode and shatter into pieces. The tip of the halberd moved up and stabbed straight toward Chu Hen's throat. Everyone below the stage felt their hearts skip a beat, and all of them revealed a horrified expression. Some were excited, and some were nervous. Swoosh! The hot edge of the halberd swept up a merciless killing intent. Chu Hen dodged sideways in the air, and the sharp halberd whistled past his throat. Pei Yi turned his wrist, and along with an arc of light in the air, the scimitar on the side of the halberd chased after and slashed down again. Chu Hen raised his hand and slapped. At the same time that the palm energy in the air was shattered by the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd, Chu Hen immediately used the recoil to retreat. Where do you think you're going? Pei Yi shouted furiously and leaped up. He held the Qilin blood divine halberd with both hands as he leaped down towards Chu Hen. Vast crimson flames rose from within his body, and the Qilin blood divine halberd was completely covered in a layer of raging flames. As swift as lightning, a 300-meter-long halberd light that shook the sky suddenly descended from the sky, and it pierced down towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's pupils constricted slightly, and the peerlessly domineering pillar of light was reflected in his eyes. Rumble! The terrifying halberd light was like a divine punishment that pierced through the sky, and it smashed heavily against the arena. At practically the exact same moment, Chu Hen flashed away from where he stood. The heavy and deafening rumble of energy was deafening, and the arena collapsed inch by inch. The surface of the arena cracked open rapidly, and an enormous hole spread out in all directions. The flying rubble was like a flock of startled moths, and it swept through the entire arena along with surging waves of energy. Under the assault of the chaotic airflow, Chu Hen fell 1,000 meters away. Looking at the extremely violent scene in front of them, many disciples of the West Dome Peak Academy felt their hearts light up, and their eyes lit up again. Senior brother Pei Yi is starting to fight back. Once senior brother Pei Yi gets serious, that guy won't even know how he died. Senior brother Pei Yi will win. Let him see the power of the Qilin's sacred body. How dare he be so arrogant? The arena, which had been quiet for a short while, began to become noisy again. Chu Hen coldly glanced at the audience, the corners of his mouth raised, and he immediately flipped his hand outwards. Draining Spirit Spear. Buzz. The sharp spear that had fallen on one side of the arena suddenly made a violent agitation, as if it was summoned by its master, and then it flew off the ground with a whoosh, drawing a powerful wave of energy in the air, and then steadily fell into Chu Hen's palm. An invisible king's aura swept in all directions. Chu Hen held the draining spirit spear and pointed it at Pei Yi in front of him. His expression was full of provocation. Sizzle! Dazzling dark blue lightning quickly lingered around the spear, and the dangerous aura made people's hearts palpitate. Pei Yi's face became more and more sinister. His aura also became more and more powerful. Flames burned outside his body, and the Qilin blood divine halberd in his hand flickered. The aura it emitted was like that of a god of war. I want to see how long you can last. I'll return this sentence to you. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with lightning, and then he raised his spear. A cold light arrived first, and then the spear shot out like a dragon. Spear light fell like rain, whistling toward Pei Yi. The latter's expression was fierce, and he held the heavy halberd with both hands, facing the attack. Boom! Bang! In an instant, on the high firmament battle platform, a storm of sparks broke out one after another. Light and shadow flew together, and the waves of energy soared to the sky. The draining spirit spear covered in blue lightning constantly collided with the Qilin blood divine halberd that was rising with red flames. The audience's eyes were dazzled, and there was too much for their eyes to take in. The majestic halberd light tore through the sky, like the flowing shadow of the divine moon, fierce and overbearing, showing the power to split mountains and split the earth. The gorgeous spear shadows attacked in a dense manner, and they were like the convergence of starlight. They changed unpredictably, and they moved in large movements, causing one to be caught off guard. The surging waves of energy were comparable to the arrival of a storm, layer after layer. Between attack and defense, it made people's eyes follow closely, and they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. What exquisite spear art! Someone in the audience shook his head and exclaimed. They thought that once the Qilin blood divine halberd appeared, Pei Yi would definitely be able to turn the situation around. However, unexpectedly, the other party's fierce attacks were all blocked by Chu Hen. While defending, Chu Hen could constantly find opportunities to counterattack. Amazing! Wu Mian, who was on the southern viewing platform, was already a little stunned, and he even suspected the reality of the scene in front of him. I say, are we still in Senior Brother Wang Li's illusion? I think so too. Zhao Qingyi also secretly shook her head. Looking at Chu Hen on the stage, Wu Yan's expression was particularly complicated. In his mind, he was still thinking about the words he said to Chu Hen the night before yesterday. At that time, he had always been suspicious, not knowing why Chu Hen was unmoved. It turned out that he had greatly underestimated his opponent. Those people are probably getting restless by now, Wu Yan smiled dryly. At the same time, he subconsciously glanced at the senior figures of Beichen Peak Academy. All the elders, Dean Luotsang and Peak Lord Yuanshang. At this moment, all of them were frowning with gloomy and complicated expressions on their faces. It was as if a spider web had formed in their hearts, and it was suffocating. Perhaps he's still angry? South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui casually asked North Star Peak Master Yuanshang. Angry? What was there to be angry about? Yi Yao gave up the opportunity to let Chu Hen advance? Yuanshang shook his head in a daze. There was even an indescribable dryness in his voice. This time, Chu Hen had directly slapped the entire Beichen Peak Academy in the face. Apart from shock, he did not have the slightest temper. Chapter 1248. Maybe he's still angry? South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui casually asked North City Peak Master Yuanshang. The latter shook his head, but his heart was indescribably complicated. Only at this moment did he understand that he had wronged Yi Yao. Not only him. Almost all the disciples of North Star Peak Academy, even the entire martial sect, wronged her. Why didn't I notice such a monstrous genius by my side? Ning Qiushui continued to ask in confusion. A new disciple who entered the sect for less than 2 years and reached the 7th level of the Eternal Realm, entered the finals of the sect battle, directly fought against the top genius who was ranked 2nd on the Heaven Martial Roll. Even Qiu Xingyi couldn't reach such a level back then. And it was precisely such a monstrous genius that was hard to see in 1,000 years that was directly overlooked by the entire martial sect. The other 3 Peak Academies could be ignored, but even North Star Peak Academy was so blind. It was really inexcusable. Yuanshang sighed deeply and nodded. Super Grade 9 martial arts talent. But he hasn't even reached the profound body realm bloodline boundary. Oh? Ning Qiushui was stunned. She looked at the young figure on the fighting ring with a shocking spear aura. Every spear strike and every style displayed the might of a storm, the power of a fierce dragon, and the swift and fierce spear light was peerlessly sharp. Even when facing the fierce attacks of the Eternal Realm Stage 9 powerhouse, Pei Yi, he was still able to deal with them with ease, under the situation where there was a difference of 2 levels in cultivation. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Then, you're telling me that this person hasn't even reached the profound body realm bloodline boundary? Ning Qiushui suspected that she had heard wrongly. Of course, she knew that Yuanshang wasn't someone who liked to lie. Most importantly, the other party indeed didn't take Chu Hen seriously. This could be seen from how he angrily left the banquet yesterday. Who tested the bloodline boundary? Ning Qiushui didn't let it go. The corner of Yuanshang's eyes narrowed as he subconsciously looked in the direction of Elder Lu. At this moment, Elder Lu's heart was also filled with panic, as if there was a ball of cotton stuffed in his chest. This wasn't an error of judgment. He was blind. Such a shocking talent was actually not directly recruited into the sect back then, and even sent to carry out the assessment mission. Fortunately, Chu Hen had come. If he had run to another sect in a fit of anger, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Thinking of this, Elder Lu couldn't help but suspect that there might have been a mistake in the results of the examination back then. Boom! A series of violent energies swept through the entire arena. Wave after wave of chaotic air currents swept down, pouncing on the audience below the stage. Looking at the sky full of spear shadows and halberd lights, Everyone felt as if their hearts were being squeezed by an invisible hand, not allowing them to relax for even a moment. "It's going to be troublesome if I can't take him down after so long." "Humph, what's the trouble?" "Don't forget that senior brother Pei Ye's Kylan holy body gets stronger in the later stages. In terms of strength, who can compare with him?" "That's true. Right now, it's hard to tell who's stronger and who's weaker. Soon, the gap between them will appear." It was hard to tell who was superior. This was what most people thought. However, Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, and the other top geniuses all had solemn expressions. The Kylan blood halberd that Pei Yi used was a divine weapon that contained the power of the Kylan's blood essence. Although the dripping god spear in Chu Hen's hand was also quite domineering, it was only a divine weapon. Using a divine weapon to fight against a divine weapon and still be in an invincible position, it was up to the benevolent to see who was stronger and who was weaker. Holy Kylan slash! As Pei Yi roared, he waved the Kylan blood halberd with both hands, and an extremely powerful half-arc of scarlet light swept towards Chu Hen like a divine moon shuttle. The terrifying killing power traversed through the air, causing the space to tremble faintly, and an arc-shaped gully appeared on the stage. Not showing any weakness, Chu Hen held up his spear to meet the attack. The dazzling spear light intertwined with lightning bolts shot up and collided head-on with the halberd light. The violent aftermath of the power was like two divine rainbows intersecting, and messy light shadows splashed everywhere. Humph! A dense cold glow surged within Pei Ye's eyes, and then the Kylan blood halberd in his hand emanated an expanse of strange talisman light. Rays of dark and obscure light seemed like they were drawn from the depths of the Earth's core. Kylan blood formation. OM. Waves of intense fluctuations of energy silently swept towards the surroundings of the Solaris combat arena. Chu Hen's gaze turned cold, and then a mysterious talisman formation that emanated a scorching aura suddenly appeared beneath him. Moreover, strands of dark red markings that were shaped like beast blood swiftly swept out from beneath his feet. The talisman formation instantly covered an area of 300 m. The markings at the center silently transformed into the image of a beast that was shaped like a Kylan. Roar. A ferocious beast's roar that caused one's soul to tremble shot furiously into the sky. After that, the sky dimmed down, and then numerous scarlet-red chains that flickered with flames shot out explosively from within the talisman formation. Walala! They seemed like chains that came from hell, and they swiftly coiled around Chu Hen. The illusory chains that seemed both real and fake swiftly coiled around Chu Hen's arms, legs, neck, and body. Dark red hellfire slowly rose into the sky above Chu Hen's head, and then it transformed into the image of a ferocious Kylan that pressed down upon him. In an instant Chu Hen's shoulders felt as if they were being crushed by a mountain. The eyes of everyone below the arena lit up. Especially those from the West Sky Peak Academy. They were extremely excited. "Now's the time. Get rid of him. Senior brother Pei Yi, get rid of him." Pei Ye's eyes surged with powerful flames as he rose with the Kylan blood halberd in his hand and stabbed it directly towards Chu Hen's heart. "It's over. It's over." Countless people below the arena frowned, and their expressions changed drastically. Big brother Chu Hen. Yi Yao clenched her fists nervously and couldn't help but exclaim. Long Xuanshuang, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yan, and the others turned pale as well. However, just as the piercingly cold halberd was about to strike, a dense and overbearing black light suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's body. Chu Hen's eyes were as deep as the infinite chaos of the universe, vast and boundless. The monstrous aura that shook the heavens and the earth seemed to come from the supreme might of a fiend god. "Break through the shackles, break the shackles!" Under the countless shocked gazes of the audience, all of the hell iron chains wrapped around Chu Hen's body tightened and exploded. At the same time, the draining god's spear in his hand erupted with a dense black light. A sharp, ear-piercing howl resounded through the sky. The Qilin beast silhouette above Chu Hen was immediately torn to pieces. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of astonished gazes, an ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings on its back and a body covered in scales astonishingly appeared behind Chu Hen. The soaring ferocious aura caused people's hearts to tremble. Everyone present turned pale with fright. OM. In an instant, Chu Hen raised his spear, and a meter-long ray of light erupted with starlight. The tip of the draining god's spear that was covered in a myriad of bolts of lightning collided with the tip of the Qilin blood halberd. Bang! The heavy halberd and the cold spear. As soon as they collided, a myriad of sparks instantly erupted. The heavy and powerful waves converged like a tsunami, and they were accompanied by an extremely ferocious wave that shot into the sky. Pei Ye's arms suddenly trembled, and the Qilin blood halberd in his hand almost flew out of his grasp. The pupils of Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others narrowed slightly. An uneasy feeling silently surged into their hearts. The extraordinary and overbearing energy pushed Pei Yi back repeatedly. Right at this moment, Chu Hen flew up without the slightest hesitation. The cold spear stopped the Qilin blood halberd, and then he flicked it up and immediately flicked Pei Ye's halberd away. In an instant, Pei Ye's defenses were completely gone. Chu Hen held the end of the draining god's spear with both hands, and his figure swiftly spun 360 degrees. An expanse of blurry spear images flashed through the air. Bang! A muffled bang resounded as the draining god's spear spun around and swept heavily against Pei Ye's chest. A chaotic vortex exploded in the air. True energy shot out while waves of energy swept out. Pei Yi was directly blasted flying by Chu Hen's attack. His internal organs hurt, and the vital energy and blood within his body surged. Moreover, the Qilin blood halberd in his hand flew out of his grasp. My God! All the spectators who'd confidently proclaimed that Pei Yi would turn the situation around opened their eyes wide once more. In his haste, Pei Yi hurriedly relied on the force of the impact to swiftly retreat. On the other hand, Chu Hen naturally intended to continue following closely behind him. Pei Ye's pupils turned cold as he gazed at Chu Hen, who was charging at him. He immediately pressed his palms together, and vast true energy surged out of his body like a torrent. Triple prison door. Rumble. The soaring sky arena shook violently, and the ground in front of it exploded. Following that, 3 large black doors that were surging with dark and gloomy light and covered with complicated runes rose impressively on the arena. Each of the black doors was 100 meters tall and about 10 meters thick. The 3 huge doors directly blocked the 2 of them. It was the most powerful defensive technique of the Western Dome Peak. Wu Yen, who was below the arena, had a slight change of expression. During the rank advancement battle of the top 16, Pei Ye's triple prison door had directly blocked his 6 magnificent star jade. Just when everyone present thought that Pei Yi would be able to make use of the powerful defense of the 3 heavy prison doors to make adjustments, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering sound rang out from the soaring firmament arena in front of them. Only a fierce gust of wind could be seen, and a cold spear covered with dark blue lightning was the first to pierce through the first black door. The piercingly cold spear ray was like a divine pillar. It directly broke open a gap that was a few meters wide. After the tyrannical rage spear ray that shocked the heavens, Chu Hen held the dripping god's spear with both of his hands, and he was unstoppable. What? Everyone's expression changed again, and they were shocked again and again in their hearts. All the elders and peak courtyard masters on Star Peak stood up abruptly. Bang! Bang! Another 2 heavy and loud bangs sounded out in succession. The terrifying spear ray shot down, and an enormous hole was pierced through the center of the 3 black doors, triple prison door. The most powerful defensive technique of the Western Dome Peak was useless before Chu Hen at this moment. Who could compare to such strength? The fierce airflow surged down as Chu Hen soared in the sky and attacked explosively with the dripping god's spear in his hand. Pei Ye's eyes were suffused with a dense, ruthless light. He condensed his palm, and the vast and powerful true origin swiftly converged at the center of his palm. Numerous crimson-colored flames were like dragons and serpents. F***ck off. Pei Yi furiously roared in a grim voice as he swung his palm out, and a palm energy that could topple mountains and overturn the seas surged down all the way. Chu Hen didn't dodge, and the dripping god's spear in his hand shot out with the force of a thunderbolt. The lightning that coiled around the spear interweaved and flickered, and it emitted extraordinary splendor. Bang! The terrifying palm energy and the piercingly cold spear intersected, and immediately set off a wave of energy. The wantonly exploded with true origin force continuously. However, it only paused for less than half a second, and the dripping god's spear directly shattered Pei Ye's majestic palm energy like a hot knife through butter. A cold light flashed between heaven and earth. Pei Ye's pupils suddenly trembled, and an endless aura of destruction swept over. Hiss. Chapter 1249. A breathtaking cold light flashed between heaven and earth, illuminating the pupils of everyone present. A string of bright blood splattered. Under countless shocked gazes, the tip of the draining spirit spear, which was flickering with lightning arcs, directly pierced through Pei Ye's thick and powerful right palm. In an instant, the entire space on the stage seemed to have fallen into a state of stillness. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yan, and many other top disciples on the heavenly martial list all narrowed their eyes, their faces revealing unconcealable shock. Even Qiu Xingyi, who was at the top of the list, couldn't help but secretly nod his head. All the high-level elders of the sect, including the 8 Peak Academy masters, couldn't sit still anymore. All of them left their seats and stood up. Apart from Dongfang Hengji, who could still maintain his composure, everyone else inside and outside the Star Peak was shocked. The face of Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak master, became increasingly gloomy. This was the last thing he wanted to see. He originally thought that the championship was already in his hands. Seeing that only Qiu Xingyi was left in front of Pei Yi, who would have thought that Chu Hen would appear out of nowhere, the most infuriating one was the new disciple of Beichen Peak Academy. Beichen Peak Academy. New disciple. No matter which label it was in existence at the bottom of the martial sect. Now, these two labels were combined on one person, which directly made people's scalps tingle. For Sidu Song, he absolutely couldn't allow such a thing to happen. The chief disciple of West Dome Peak must not lose to a new disciple of Beichen Peak Academy. Absolutely not. Sidu Song's eyes were gloomy as he secretly scolded. Chi. Chi. The gorgeous cold spear was like a bolt of lightning, piercing through Pei Ye's palm. In just a short moment, everyone present felt as if they had been separated by several years. Chu Hen exerted strength in his arm and raised the tip of the spear. The cold spear covered with dazzling lightning arcs shot straight down, directly piercing the opponent's throat. The cold spear was like a shadow, as gorgeous as a ray of light. Everyone's pupils constricted. However, just as the ice-cold spear tip was less than half a centimeter away from Pei Ye's throat, a wave of air stacked up, and a muffled sound surged out. The ice-cold spear was directly fixed in the air. Everyone was shocked once again. Pei Ye's other arm was actually firmly grabbing onto the draining god spear's body. Scarlet flames covered his arm like a pair of iron pincers, not moving at all. Boundless ferocious aura spread out in all directions. At this moment, Pei Ye's eyes emitted the ruthlessness of a ferocious beast. They were suffused with a scarlet blood-red light, and the aura that caused one to shudder was clamorous. The scarlet light that surged continuously was like the flames of magma in the Earth's core. At this moment, everyone felt that this person wasn't Pei Yi, but a ferocious beast. Pei Yi smiled, and his smile was especially vicious and savage. His scarlet eyes stared coldly at Chu Hen, and every single word he said was filled with dense hatred and killing intent. "Congratulations, you've successfully angered me. This is the first time. The momentum of his rage was like a thunderclap piercing the ears. Roar! In the next moment, the ferocious beast's roar that shook the sky shook the surroundings, and a strand of monstrous rage shot into the sky. It was like a violent volcano erupting, and the violent flames rose to over 300 m. In an instant. An enormous Qilin raised its head and roared madly within the flames that shot into the sky. Rumble! An extremely ferocious and terrifying imposing aura condensed into a surging shockwave that surged out. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly, and he instantly felt his body tremble while his arm went numb. His fingers immediately loosened the draining god's spear in his palm, and then he was blasted flying by this violent force. Pei Ye's gaze revealed ruthlessness. The blood vessels on his left arm bulged up as he grabbed the middle end of the draining god's spear, and then he pulled it out. Hiss! Along with the blood that sprayed out, he forcefully pulled out the spear that pierced through his right palm. A clear bloody hole appeared on the center of Pei Ye's right palm. However, Pei Ye didn't even spare it a glance before tossing the draining god's spear to the side, and his gaze that surged with a bloody glow stared fiercely at Chu Hen, who stood before him. The voice that came from his throat was low and icy cold. "Suffer my wrath." Trash. West Sky Technique. Heaven's Blade. Pei Yi, who was in a rage, erupted with infinite killing intent. The 9 heavens changed color, and wind and thunder intertwined. Pei Yi, who was filled with monstrous flames, raised one hand to the sky, and an overwhelming and terrifying power almost overturned the 9 heavens. The spectacular scene of the previous peak duel reappeared in the sky above the high heaven platform. Mighty dark clouds filled the sky, and a dazzling golden divine light was released from the raging nebula. Everyone's pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip once again. Their faces were illuminated so brightly that even their facial features couldn't be seen clearly. Endless destructive power tore through the void, and countless giant light pillars that were comparable to divine punishment condensed in the void with a piercingly cold and austere power. However, what was different from before was, in the battle against Wang Li, the power of the West Sky Technique covered the entire high heaven platform. But at this moment, all the power was almost concentrated together. This time, the destructive power that Chu Hen was about to endure was much more terrifying than Wang Li's. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yan, and the other top genius disciples had solemn expressions on their faces. Without the powerful defense of the Southern Spirit tactic, how would Chu Hen be able to block Pei Ye's super-powerful killing move? Looking at the dazzling light pillar that was comparable to the Sword of Death, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he suddenly put his palms together, and an extremely cold ice cyclone suddenly erupted from his body. Limitless Arctic Storm. Arctic Storm. A deep voice reverberated between heaven and earth. In an instant, the temperature within 100 miles of Star Peak plummeted to freezing point. Ice and snow roared, and frost blades filled the sky. Rumble! Along with the high heaven platform that was covered in ice, thick and large ice walls immediately rose from all directions around Chu Hen. The ice walls surrounded Chu Hen from all sides, sealing him within. This is the Shao Alliance's technique? Is he the one who injured the Shao Alliance? He actually stole the Shao Alliance's 4 souls. This familiar power had been used by the Shao Alliance before. Seeing this scene, many disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy showed indignant expressions. Not only did he beat the Shao Alliance half to death, but he also stole the 4 souls of others. It was simply shameless. However, in the next moment, there was another incomparably majestic aura that leaked out from where Chu Hen was. Limitless Heart of Thorns. Rumble! In an instant, countless crimson light patterns suddenly bloomed on the high heaven platform. The light patterns were like blood, dark and gloomy. Quickly after, under tens of thousands of widened gazes, incomparably large vines climbed up the thick ice wall like the tentacles of a monster from hell. In the blink of an eye, they covered the entire ice wall, forming a second layer of powerful defense around Chu Hen's body. What? Everyone's eyes widened. Chapter 1250. Sun Luo, Heart of Thorns. Just as everyone was cursing Chu Hen for snatching the Shao Alliance's 4 ice-attributed soul spirits, a wave of wood-attributed Sun Luo force erupted. Gazing at the sturdy vine plants that covered the entire surface of the stage and rapidly covered the exterior of the gigantic ice wall, everyone below the stage felt their scalps turn numb from Chu Hen's display of his 2 trump cards, while their hearts trembled with fear. The expressions of the 8-peak courtyard masters changed. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the other geniuses all narrowed their eyes. Snatching the Shao Alliance's power? In just a blink of an eye, those who had cursed Lin Xiu were all slapped in the face. The majestic and luxuriant vines were like huge tentacles that came from hell. Layer after layer, they covered the outside of the thick and heavy ice wall, directly giving Chu Hen 2 layers of powerful protection. Buzz, there was no time to recover, nor was there any time to be shocked. The countless powerful divine light beams swept up a terrifying power that could destroy everything and suddenly fell from the sky. The spectacular scene once again impacted the visual nerves of everyone present. For example, it was like a divine punishment from the heavens, shattering the heavens. Under thousands of gazes filled with endless shock, the numerous heavens blades that had gathered in one place heavily struck the area where Chu Hen was at with a power that could pierce through the heavens and the earth. Bang! The earth-shattering and star-like impact immediately exploded the entire arena. Tens of thousands of gigantic vines were broken into countless pieces. The majestic beam of divine radiance destroyed everything in its path. While cutting down countless giant vines, it once again bombarded the magnificent and luxurious large ice wall. Boom! A series of heavy explosions reverberated between heaven and earth. In an instant, the entire soaring sky battle ring seemed to be hit by the impact of a meteorite from outer space. The stage shook violently, and the stone bricks exploded into pieces. Huge cracks rapidly spread in all directions. Under the gazes of many shocked gazes, the huge ice wall standing on the stage immediately burst open, and a surging cold air surged out like a tide. The surging aftershock was comparable to a rapidly expanding storm vortex. Rubble soared into the sky, and chi waves roared. The deep fault split in the middle, and the entire platform of clouds was almost divided into 2. At this moment, everyone's heartstrings were tightly pulled together. Everyone's eyes were trembling. Western Sky Art. Heaven's Blade. The power of Pei Ye's attack far surpassed that of when he faced Wang Li previously. The violent storm was constantly tearing the space in front of them. Even the masters of the 8-peak academies had their eyes fixed on it. How is Chu Hen? This was the question in everyone's mind. This power is really terrifying. It really makes people tremble. He actually grasped 2 types of limitless power. I had thought that he was the one who stole Shao Alliance's power. But now that I look at it, Shao Alliance doesn't even have a tenth of his power. So what if you've grasped 2 types of limitless energy? It can't block senior brother Pei Ye's Western Sky Art at all. That's right. Even if Chu Hen doesn't die, he will lose half his life. Bang! Suddenly, at this moment, an incomparably majestic black wave directly swept out from the chaotic energy storm. Sect Master Dongfang Hengji, who was sitting on the highest spot of Xingqing Peak, slightly raised his eyes. Below the stage, everyone's heart suddenly trembled. The airflow that permeated between heaven and earth quietly became chaotic. The invisible aura seeped into countless people's minds. On the high firmament arena, a young figure emitting a proud aura once again appeared in everyone's line of sight. What? In an instant, everyone was shocked. The eyes of Yi Yao, Long Xuanshuang, Wu Mian, and the others lit up. However, the eyes of the others were wide open, their faces filled with thick disbelief. They saw that Chu Hen was unscathed, and his aura was still as proud as before. His deep eyes were like the vast universe of stars, causing one's heart to palpitate. A black shadow floated behind him. That shadow stuck to his back, and its outline and shape were like a second Chu hen. That is? Is it the power of the bloodline boundary? Isn't it only the battle body? Even the Xian body has not reached the bloodline boundary. Many uneasy voices sounded in the crowd. At this moment, a trembling voice softly came into everyone's ears. Best, Saint Body, boom! The voice was not loud, but it was even louder than a bolt from the blue in everyone's ears. Best Saint Body. Hearing these 4 words, even the heads of the 8 Great Peaks academies were faintly numb. It can't be wrong. I was also there when the Deep Star State recruited new disciples. On the stone tablet to test the bloodline boundary, the lowest is a lower grade Xian body, and the highest is a upper grade Saint body. In other words, those who exceed the level of a upper grade Saint body cannot be tested. Oh my God! One word woke everyone up from their dreams. At this moment, the atmosphere of the entire high firmament arena was endless shock, and everyone's heart was set off unprecedented monstrous waves. Even Wu Yan, Wu Mian, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and a few others were sincerely shocked. Long Xuanshuang and Yi Yao were overjoyed. After being misunderstood for so long, the counterattack at this moment was a direct slap to the entire martial arts sect. They knew that Chu Hen would never let them down. Best Saint Body. Who could compare to him? While Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the other top geniuses were shocked, they subconsciously glanced at the extraordinary young figure on the Xingqing Peak. Qiu Xingyi, the top of the sky martial list. Among all the disciples of the martial arts sect, he was the only one who had the best Saint Body bloodline boundary. Elder Lu, who was responsible for testing the bloodline boundary, was as pale as a sheet, and his hands were faintly trembling. The lowest was a lower grade Xian body, and the highest was a upper grade Saint body. Those who exceeded these 2 standards could not be evaluated. People only thought that Chu Hen was at the bottom, but they never thought that his bloodline boundary had broken through the top. At this moment, Elder Lu felt a chill down his spine. He had almost become the martial arts sect's eternal sinner. Fortunately, Chu Hen still came here. Powerful auras burst forth on the Ling Shao battle platform, causing many violent collisions. In front of Chu Hen, who was enveloped in a dense black light, Pei Yi, whose entire body was covered in blazing flames, had an extremely gloomy expression. The gaze he looked at Chu Hen was no longer as simple as pure hatred and killing intent. There was also a deep sense of jealousy. He was definitely a great danger. A sinister smile appeared on Pei Ye's face, and a boundless killing intent was released. Top quality saint physique, huh? Ha 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 ha. What can you do to me? Roar. A monstrous, violent power rushed into the sky, like a tsunami of raging flames covering the sky. Accompanied by an incomparably shocking ferocity, a huge Qilin beast suddenly appeared under the sky. Qiu Xingyi, Pei Yi changed the topic and actually raised his finger to point at the top of the leaderboard. Watch carefully. Originally, this move was supposed to be used on you, but now, I'll show it to you in advance. It was domineering, like a mountain. Roar. The instant Pei Ye's words left his mouth, another earth-shattering roar of a ferocious beast resounded in all directions. Under many pairs of trembling gazes, a second ferocious Qilin beast shadow appeared in the air. This Qilin's entire body was covered in black scales. It was ferocious and terrifying, and its 4 claws stepped on black flames. Black Qilin. Chapter 1251. Black Qilin. The earth-shattering ferocious aura caused the clouds to change and the earth to lose its color. At this moment, Pei Yi shouted at the top of the heavenly martial list, Qiu Xingyi. His aura shook the heavens and shocked everyone. Sensing the monstrous aura coming from the 2 Qilins, everyone could not help but feel their hearts palpitate as if they were standing in front of an ancient ferocious beast. Everyone's hearts trembled with unease. It was a genuine ferocious aura. There are 2 Qilins? It's said that senior brother Pei Yi subdued a black Qilin's divine soul in the Deep Star State's Qilin Cave. That's right. I've also heard about this. That place was originally a volcanic area. It's a dangerous place for tens of thousands of years. Rumor has it that a black Qilin died there. Its remaining soul and beast blood are indestructible and attached to the magma in the cave. Over the years, it absorbed the mystical flame's energy in the magma and finally condensed into a powerful demon soul. I thought it was just a legend. I didn't expect it to be true. Exclamations could be heard from below the stage. When Long Xuan and Yi Yao saw the Qilin shrouded in black flames, they could not help but look at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They clearly remembered that Chu Hen had once ventured into the Qilin's cave alone to search for Luo Mengchang's whereabouts. After that time, Chu Hen's face was a little gloomy, and he seemed to be in a slightly sorry state. Even the punishment armor was destroyed. At that time, when everyone asked him the reason, Chu Hen only replied that he met 3 unreasonable people with extremely powerful cultivations. After that, this matter was never mentioned again. Originally, they thought this was the end of the story. Now that they saw the black Qilin, they seemed to understand something. In the soaring sky battle ring, the wind blew and clouds surged. The sky changed color. Pei Ye's eyes were ferocious and filled with rage. Tremble! Roar! The 2 Qilins roared at the sky, bursting out with endless destructive power. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the red and black beasts merged together at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of darkness, the scarlet flame. The 2 powerful forces fused with each other, and thousands of strands of vigorous energy whirlpools spun rapidly in the same direction. An incomparably majestic and spectacular nebula stirred the sky. A vast and terrifying power engulfed the surroundings. Buzz! The space trembled violently, and the 2 Qilin beast phantoms suddenly fused into one. In an instant, a world-shaking ferocious being that was 1,000 meters tall appeared beneath the sky, and a black Qilin that was burning with crimson flames appeared before everyone's eyes. Everyone's heart palpitated with fear. An indescribable fear reached the depths of his soul. Roar! With a roar, a strong gust of wind surged. At this moment, Pei Yi, who stood beneath the Qilin, was like an unparalleled god of war. So what if you have a supreme-grade saint body? With a loud shout, he extended his palm towards Chu Hen in front of him. A wave of berserk power pressed down from the sky, with the power of a mountain. Die! Everyone's expression changed again and again, and their hearts were filled with shock. Everyone was shocked by the aura that erupted from Pei Yi. Many disciples of the West Dome Peak Academy were excited. Boom! However, at the instant before the berserk hand that blotted out the sky was about to land on Chu Hen's body, it exploded into light fragments that blotted the sky. Along with the chaotic energy whirlpools, it surged out. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with bright lightning. Sizzle! The manic momentum was like the loud cries of thousands of thunderbirds. Countless dark blue lightning pillars bloomed from Chu Hen's body. Like an infinitely extending 3-dimensional net, the majestic large lightning pillars, like dragons and pythons intertwining, immediately soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the high firmament battle platform was immediately covered with a violent lightning domain. Thousands of lightning tribulations rapidly merged and condensed, and a dazzling light shone in the sky. Roar! It was the same roar of a ferocious beast that touched the soul, and everyone's face turned pale. That is, even the masters of the 8 peak courtyards frowned as their eyes were filled with shock. Sizzle! Divine lightning intertwined and tore the sky apart. Endless lightning gathered in the sky net, and a huge dragon emitting a terrifying divine aura suddenly formed. Its entire body was covered in lightning, and the dense blue electric arcs were like ancient mysterious scales. Chu Hen was like an ancient wizard who controlled the power of divine lightning. He looked at Pei Yi indifferently, his brows full of arrogance. You can die now. Ha 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 ha. Pei was so angry that he laughed. Very good, then let's see who will die. Who? Roar! Roar! Accompanied by a terrifying divine might that shook the heavens, the black Qilin, whose entire body was covered in scarlet flames, stepped on the strange flames and charged forward. The lightning dragon, whose entire body was covered in violent lightning, descended in anger, sweeping up a destructive force as it swooped down. The world changed color. The sky was about to split. Bang! An incomparably loud and heavy sound immediately resounded between heaven and earth. At this moment, space distorted, the 9 heavens shook, and everyone's hearts almost stopped. An earth-shattering shockwave soared into the sky, whistling in all directions. The stone bricks on the soaring sky battle platform were all shattered into powder, and layer after layer of soil was sent flying. Rumble! With a loud explosion, the stage that was as large as a public square was directly split in 2 waves of violent shockwaves swept out. Bang, bang, bang! With a series of violent explosions, the protective light screens under the stage shattered like glass, shattering into millions of pieces. All the audience below the stage retreated from the shock. There were even some relatively weaker people who were directly sent flying, their blood surging, and they almost fainted on the ground. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was horrified. The battle between the 2's trump cards. It was so terrifying. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the other top disciples on the heaven marshal list all had solemn expressions, their eyes trembling. The masters of the 8 great peak academies were also tense, and their faces were gloomy. Especially the West Sky Peak Master Sidu Song and the North Sky Peak Master Yuan Shang. Even though they were used to great storms, it was difficult for them to calm down at this moment. One was the chief disciple of the West Sky Peak Academy. The other was a newcomer of the North Sky Peak Academy. In the history of the martial sect, a scene that had never appeared before could be said to have ignited the entire audience. Boom! A series of violent explosions of power could be said to be earth-shattering. Scarlet flames and blue lightning constantly intersected and flowed in all directions. The chaotic shock waves that constantly tore through space tore each other apart. Pei Ye's eyes surged with thick flames, and he stretched out his palms towards the sky. You can't win against me. The bloodline boundary of the Qilin sacred body was fully released without reservation. In an instant, magma-like light patterns immediately flowed around the black Qilin's body, its aura burned the sky. The endless Qilin fire that erupted from the black Qilin pounced towards the lightning dragon with the force of a prairie fire. He was going to win. Seeing this scene, the many disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy were overjoyed. Peak Master Sidu Song's face also quietly revealed a grim smile. The outcome was about to be decided. However, in the next moment, the lightning dragon was enveloped by the Qilin fire. An extremely thick and surging gray aura leaked out from Chu Hen's body without any warning, along with the sound of his voice. A desolate and dark gray aura was like an uncontrollable flood of desolation. It suddenly swept out in all directions and spread out toward the entire soaring sky battle platform. Covered the sky and covered the earth. The gray cyclone formed a powerful shock wave that surged down. The sky and earth changed color, and the surrounding space turned into a dim yellow space. Dust filled the sky. Traces of yellow sand mixed with brown turbid air filled the sky and danced wildly. It was like the gray aura of the god of death had descended. All the vitality in the world dimmed at the fastest speed possible. Sun Luo, 1,000 miles of desolation. The hearts of everyone present suddenly trembled. Before they could react, they were affected by the overflowing gray aura, and the skin on their arms faintly wrinkled. The sudden and shocking change caught everyone off guard. Each and every one of them trembled and their faces turned pale. Chapter 1252. The third one, the limitless power. The sudden and shocking change caught everyone in the entire star-raising peak off guard. The grayish aura that filled the heavens and earth was like the dark aura that the Grim Reaper exhaled. Dust filled the sky and spiritual energy dissipated. The entire soaring sky arena, even the air, was filled with a desolate and turbid aura. One trump card after another was revealed. Everyone was completely shocked by Chu-Hen. They felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone knew that the Demon Clan's Limitless King had refined 4 types of limitless power. Previously, when Xiao Meng executed the first one, it had already stunned everyone. Then, when Chu-Hen executed the second one, it made those doubters speechless. Now the third one had appeared. Everyone finally understood what it meant to be shocked. 3 of the 4 types of limitless power had appeared. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with dense fear. Just who was Chu-Hen? How could a mere new disciple have such ability? Without any chance to be shocked, the surging grayish light swept towards Pei Yi like ripples on the surface of water. Buzz! The incomparably overbearing great desolation power swept over and landed on Pei Ye's body. Pei Ye's body violently trembled. The powerful bloodline power that erupted from his body seemed to have been forcefully extracted. It was swiftly corroded and crushed. What? Pei Ye's face drastically changed. He felt as if the power in his body had been invaded by the great desolation power. He was like a tree that had lost its vitality, becoming weak and decayed like a chain reaction. The black Qilin, which was covered in a blazing aura, emitted a violent and uneasy tremble. Iolo, before Pei Yi could come up with any countermeasures, a lightning dragon that was covered in dazzling arcs of lightning suddenly charged out of the blazing heavenly flames and charged down furiously with the might to destroy the heavens. Boom! An incomparably heavy explosion exploded in the sky as a terrifying shock wave swept across the 9 heavens. The unstoppable lightning dragon had directly torn apart the ferocious Qilin. Thereafter, it swooped down, setting off a torrential aura wave as it pounced towards Pei Yi. Like a landslide, like the sky was splitting apart, the dazzling dark blue lightning dragon shook the world. Pei Ye's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Panic that had never appeared before quietly appeared on his face. The luxurious and gorgeous lightning illuminated everyone's face. Clang! In the next instant, a flower of lightning that shot through the heavens and the earth swept through the entire coiling sky combat arena. Countless peerlessly violent and robust tribulation lightning tore the heavens and the earth apart, and they seemed like a myriad of flowing dragons and pythons. The densely packed electric arcs were like a huge blue spider web. The soaring firmament battle platform, which was already riddled with holes, once again shattered into pieces. Countless large and small rocks flew across the sky, exploding in all directions. At this moment, everyone's pupils were trembling. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. Under the violent interweaving of thunder and lightning, a figure with a gradually weakening aura could be faintly seen. Everyone clenched their fists and their eyes darkened. Pei Ye's body was covered in wounds, and his clothes were torn. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and an illusory Qilin beast silhouette enveloped his body like a veil. He blocked it. The hearts of the West Dome Peak Academy's disciples lit up. But in the next instant, 2 dazzling electric arcs suddenly appeared in the air, and a peerlessly fierce figure flashed in front of Pei Yi like a ghost. Pei Ye's constricted pupils reflected a handsome face that was filled with playfulness. You, without any chance to meet the attack, an arm flickering with gorgeous lightning directly broke through the Qilin beast silhouette's defensive layer. Pei Ye's expression changed dramatically. He wanted to retreat, but in the next instant, he felt his throat tighten. An ice-cold, iron-like palm directly strangled his neck. Hua, an invisible majestic aura spread out in all directions. Bang! With a cracking sound, the Qilin beast silhouette that enveloped Pei Ye's body directly shattered into countless fragments. The entire world seemed to have fallen into a state of stillness. All the West Dome Peak Academy and Pei Ye's supporters were deathly pale, and their hearts all sank to the bottom of a boundless abyss. Peak Master Sidhu Song's eyes were filled with thick disbelief. The smile that was still there a moment ago instantly disappeared completely. The entire audience was deathly silent. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying and the others all stared at the broken battle platform in front of them. Wu Mian, Zhao Qingyi and the others were in a trance, as if they were in a different world. A scene that no one could have imagined happened. The scene that they were most worried about appeared. The chief disciple of the West Dome Peak Academy, the newly promoted second on the Heaven Marshal list, was unstoppable all the way, aiming for the champion's throne. But when he was just one step away from the champion's throne, he was blocked by a newcomer who had entered for less than 2 years Beichen Peak Academy. The Peak Academy that had been at the bottom for many years. At this moment, a new disciple of this Peak Academy directly grabbed Pei Ye's throat. Chi. The lightning that lingered around Chu Hen's arm was particularly dazzling. His palm and arm exerted force, and Pei Ye's feet slowly left the ground. Haha! This is the so-called chief disciple of the West Dome Peak Academy? He's simply a cripple that can't withstand a single blow. Can't withstand a single blow. Cripple. This scene was very familiar. The same scene. The same words. The expressions of the audience changed again and again. Just the day before yesterday, Pei Yi also used this method to humiliate the number 1 person of the Beichen Peak Academy, Wu Yan, to the extreme. The scene of that day reappeared. But the difference was that the one who was humiliated this time was Pei Yi and the entire West Dome Peak Academy. Those who kill will always be killed. Those who humiliate will always be humiliated. Everyone from the Beichen Peak Academy couldn't help but clench their fists, their eyes surging with uncontrollable excitement. Especially Wu Yan, his body was trembling uneasily. Even though he was a 7-foot-tall man, his eyes couldn't help but slightly redden at this moment. Chu Hen was collecting debts on his behalf. Collecting all the humiliation he suffered that day here. Collecting all the dignity that the Beichen Peak Academy lost that day. This time, the Beichen Peak Academy finally dared to raise their heads in an upright manner. Peak Master Yuan Shang, Court Master Luo Tsang, and the many elders of the Beichen Peak Academy couldn't help but tightly clench their teeth. Over the years, the Beichen Peak Academy had endured so much humiliation, suffered so much mockery, and heard so much ridicule. At this moment it was as if they wanted all of it back. In comparison, everyone from the West Dome Academy felt a deep sense of defeat. Looking at Pei Yi, who was held in Chu Hen's hand and unable to move, everyone felt powerless in their hearts. Peak Master Sidhu Song's expression became increasingly gloomy. If looks could kill, then Chu Hen would have already been torn to pieces at this moment. Bang! Chu Hen loosened his grip, and Pei Yi fell heavily to the ground. Then, he raised his leg and directly kicked Pei Yi's chest. Along with a spurt of blood, Pei Yi flew out like a sandbag. Just like Wu Yan that day, he fiercely slammed into the spectator stands on the west side. The ferocious impact directly smashed large pieces of bricks into smithereens. The surrounding people were all forced back by the biting cold wave of air. Anger. Unwillingness. Pei Yi fell to the ground, traces of blood flowing from his mouth and nose. His internal organs were trembling, and his aura was weak like a dog that was about to die. However, Chu Hen didn't even look at him. He indifferently turned around and walked towards the spectator stands on the south side. Long Xuan, Yi Yao, Wu Mian, and the others began to welcome his return. Everyone couldn't help but reveal looks of admiration in their eyes. And for Pei Yi, at this moment, all the gazes directed at him from all directions were filled with great mockery. Looking at the figure that was the focus of attention, the unwillingness and anger in Pei Yi's eyes multiplied. The hatred and killing intent in his eyes that had lost all rationality erupted uncontrollably. Pei Yi slammed his palm on the ground and suddenly soared into the air. Then, he set off a fierce aura and flew towards the high firmament battle platform. His eyes were blood-red, and he looked like a ferocious beast that had gone mad. "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to tear you into pieces!" Everyone was shocked. It was already too late to stop him. Pei Yi, who'd set off a majestic attack, immediately arrived behind Chu Hen. However, in the next instant, Chu Hen turned around and kicked. Bang! A circle of true Yuan energy spread out. Pei Ye's chest, who had encountered the force of 1,000 caddies, immediately caved in. His entire person was sent flying high into the sky. Buzz! Subsequently, Chu Hen's palms faced each other, and a powerful true origin energy immediately condensed into a dazzling lightning sword light. "You dare?" Sidhu Song, the West Sky Peak Master, was shocked and shouted in a stern voice. Swish! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen pushed his palms outwards, and the lightning sword shadow dragged out a condensed wave of air in the sky. It was like a meteor chasing after the moon as it pursued Pei Yi, who was high up in the sky. "How dare you!" Sidhu Song was furious. He'd already been suppressing a bellyful of anger, and seeing that Chu Hen was going to kill him, he couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped into the air and raised his palm. The vast and surging palm energy caused the heavens and earth to tremble. Bang! With an explosive sound, the lightning sword light exploded into a cyclone less than 10 meters away from Pei Yi. However, at this moment, a demonic purple light rose from within Chu Hen's body. There was a trace of coldness in the depths of his deep eyes, and 6 black dots quietly appeared. Buzz, in the air, a spiral of purple cyclones condensed like small whirlwinds, and then a strange light shield quietly appeared between heaven and earth. Punishment shield? Long Xuan and Yi Yao, who were below the stage, were shocked. That light shield was indeed a powerful defensive power that Chu Hen had used before. But in the next moment, the light shield was like a shadow blade that pierced through heaven and earth, slashing towards Pei Yi with a piercingly cold momentum. Purple light shone brilliantly, and the evil eye pattern on the light shield was mysterious and unfathomable. "You still dare to attack?" Sidhu Song, who was already stepping through the air, was both shocked and furious. An even more ferocious palm energy poured out. Scram! Bang! The violent impact arrived, and everyone thought that it would explode and shatter like the lightning sword light. However, something that no one expected happened. When Sidhu Song's palm landed, it actually only caused the light shield's solidification to sharply decrease, but it didn't shatter. What? Everyone was shocked. Pei Yi was also shocked. His pupils shrank as he stared at the purple shadow blade that was rapidly approaching him. A rain of fresh blood danced in the sky. Under countless gazes that were filled with endless fear, the purple shadow blade formed by the punishment shield was like a divine light that could cut the heavens as it directly passed through Pei Ye's lower body. In an instant, 2 broken legs directly separated from Pei Ye's body and immediately flew out. Chapter 1253. Hiss! Blood rained down from the sky like blooming flowers dancing in the air. The purple shadow blade transformed from the shield of punishment was like a flying shuttle that shuttled through the endless years. It was silent, sharp, and swift. Pei Ye's pupils constricted to the extreme, filled with infinite fear. He watched as his 2 legs left his body and flew in front of him. Shock, fear, all of it appeared on his face. All the previous fear, anger, and hatred had turned into unprecedented fear. All the martial ancestor sect disciples inside and outside the Xingqing peak widened their eyes. All of them were terrified, and a chill ran down their spines. Their scalps were numb, and their feet were trembling. For all the supporters of the West Dome Peak Academy and Pei Yi, the scene in front of them would become a nightmare that they would never be able to forget. This moment would become a memory that they would never be able to forget. Even Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the others were faintly pale. They never thought that Pei Yi would meet such a miserable end. Chu Hen had clearly spared his life. In the blink of an eye, he had lost a pair of legs. He had become a cripple. If Sidu Song's palm force had not slightly changed the trajectory of the shadow blade, Chu Hen's attack would have probably cut Pei Yi in two. He had died here in an instant. At this moment, the faint purple light in Chu Hen's eyes slowly faded. Among them, the 6 black dots had also disappeared. Compared to the 5-star demonic pupils that mainly focused on defense, the 6-star Saint Body bloodline that had evolved to a higher level of power. The shield of punishment was no longer limited to defense. It could also be used to attack. The shield of punishment, which had amazing defense, was so powerful that it was comparable to the power of a divine artifact once it was used to attack. Bang! Pei Yi, who had fallen from the sky, smashed heavily on the devastated fighting ring. The intense pain and the heavy injuries he had suffered made him go crazy like a mad dog. Ah! The miserable scream was chilling. Then, a large mouthful of blood gushed out, and he directly fell to the ground, unconscious. The chief disciple of the West Dome Peak. Just a moment ago, he was still looking down on everyone in high spirits. In the blink of an eye, he was as miserable as a dead dog. All of this was thanks to Chu Hen. Looking at the reckless Pei Yi, the West Dome Peak Master Sidu Song's eyes turned red with anger. He glared angrily at Chu Hen, his eyes filled with cold, killing intent. "How dare you?" Every word was like ice, piercingly cold. In an instant, an unshakable, majestic aura erupted from Situ Song's body. He actually flew towards Chu Hen's location. "Stop!" The North Star Peak's master, Yuan Shang, shouted in a grim voice. Mysterious East Peak Master Ao Yunzhuang and South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui were similarly shocked. No one had expected Sidu Song to be so enraged that he would disregard his status as a peak leader and attack a mere disciple. Things happened unexpectedly. However, no one could stop him in time. Chu Hen's eyes darkened. He clenched his fists, and endless violent black Kshetra divine lightning flowed out of his body. But in the next moment, all of the power that Chu Hen had released was completely suppressed. The dark blue pillar of lightning was completely withdrawn, and even the true yuan that was circulating within his body had completely fallen into a state of stagnation and confinement. "Oh no, it's the spirit-binding art!" someone exclaimed. The spirit-binding art. Sidu Song's original confinement art could instantly freeze the opponent's power into a static state. Everyone in the audience was shocked. Sidu Song really wanted to take Chu Hen's life to vent the hatred in his heart. Looking at Chu Hen, who was almost unable to move, Yi Yao, Long Xuanshuang, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yan, and the rest all turned pale. "Big brother Chu Hen, stop!" Without any hesitation, Sidu Song's condensed palm energy was like a wild dragon coming out of the sea, crushing towards Chu Hen below. Chu Hen's pupils shrank rapidly. Endless destructive aura surged down. Just when everyone thought that Chu Hen was dead for sure, bang! A heavy and violent explosion spread across the sky above the high firmament platform. Violent true yuan mixed with chaotic spirit power spread across the entire arena under everyone's shocked gazes. Sidu Song's fierce palm energy was the first to hit a light screen formed by thousands of runes. "That's the rune art, and he's a grandmaster," Ning Qiushui, the master of South Spirit Peak, subconsciously blurted out. "The rune art? A grandmaster?" This simple sentence once again set off a monstrous wave in the hearts of everyone present. Each time was more shocking than the last. Each time was more unexpected than the last. Just like Chu Hen's endless trump cards, everything that happened today shocked everyone to the point that they began to doubt their own lives. Monster? Genius? At this moment, all the geniuses were overshadowed. Even Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked first on the Sky Marshal list, quietly became a foil to Chu Hen. Who could compare to him? No one could compare to him. However, in just an instant, the rune light screen formed by Reiki energy in front of Chu Hen was immediately shattered by Sidu Song's overbearing palm energy. After all, he was the master of the Peak Courtyard. In the entire martial sect, He was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. No matter how monstrous Chu Hen was, it would be difficult for him to compete with him. The dazzling rune light screen exploded into countless light fragments. Chu Hen's body also trembled, and at the same time, a trace of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. He didn't die from one palm strike. Sidhu Song's second palm strike followed closely behind. A terrifying power that could topple mountains and overturn seas swept out. Just at this time, a figure with an extraordinary aura appeared in front of Chu Hen. Similarly, he raised his palm and raised it. His withered palm, which was surrounded by thick true yuan, solidly collided with Sidhu Song's palm. Energy, boom! Bang! A thunderous explosion shook the heavens and the earth, and a chaotic wave of wind whistled through the sky. The stones under the Lingshao platform were all shattered, and the surging true qi was like a tidal wave. The two of them retreated to the back. The person who came was none other than Beichen Peak's master, Yuan Shang. Sidhu Song. Yuan Shang frowned, showing his authority, and directly called out the other party's name. Publicly attacking a disciple, have you been living like a dog? At the last moment, he saved Chu Hen. Everyone from Beichen Peak Academy heaved a sigh of relief. Long Xuan and Yi Yao immediately rushed into the arena. Brother Chu Hen, how are you? Yi Yao asked anxiously, her beautiful brows full of worry. Chu Hen casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, smiled, and shook his head, indicating that he was fine. Then he raised his eyes to look at Sidhu Song in front of him, his eyes surging with coldness. Sidhu Song's eyes were even more red, and it could be said that he hated Chu Hen to the point of gnashing his teeth. He was glaring angrily at Yuan Shang, who was blocking in front of him. Before he could speak, an aura that made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts spread out in the sky above Xingqing Peak. Attacking in front of this sect master, are you all afraid that I don't exist? The indifferent tone of the voice was as calm as the water in an ancient well. But it was this emotionless sentence that directly caused the faces of all the Peak Academy masters to change. Suddenly Sidhu Song's heartstrings suddenly trembled, and all the anger in his heart immediately disappeared completely. As if he had just woken up from a dream, Sidhu Song immediately knelt on both knees. Lord Sect Master, please calm down. I was confused for a moment, please forgive me, Lord Sect Master. Whoosh! In an instant, all the disciples and elders of the entire Xingqing Peak stood up, bowed their heads, and muttered in unison. Chapter 1254. Lord Sect Master, please calm down. All the martial arts sect disciples and elders on the viewing platform of the entire Xingqing Peak bowed and lowered their heads, their faces filled with respect. Sidhu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, knelt on the ground. His face was no longer as arrogant and domineering as before. The formless supreme might seem to come from a monarch who stood above the masses. Although Dongfang Hengji's tone was calm and his expression was indifferent, everyone present seemed to feel a majestic oppression that penetrated into their souls. Dongfang Hengji slowly stood up from the stone chair. He looked down at Yuan Shang, Sidhu Song, and Chu Hen on the high firmament battle platform. The sect battle is a battle between the disciples of the various Peak Academies. Sidhu Song, as the West Dome Peak Academy Master, has openly violated the sect rules and attacked the disciples of the sect without authorization. This sect master is really disappointed. Sidhu Song's face turned pale. However, he did not even have the intention to refute. He lowered his head and replied in a deep voice, I am willing to accept the punishment. Very well, from today onwards, Sidhu Song will be removed from the position of West Dome Peak Master and will be demoted to the position of Sect Guardian Elder. All the matters of the Peak Academy will be temporarily handled by Academy Master Mu Shan. Wow! As soon as these words came out, the audience could not help but be shocked. On the other hand, Sidhu Song's expression immediately turned deathly pale. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and unwillingness. He glanced at Yuan Shang and Chu Hen with some hatred. Immediately, he clenched his fists, before slowly relaxing them. His voice trembled as he replied. Yes, this subordinate accepts his punishment. The glory of the past gradually faded. Dongxian Peak Master Ao Yunzhuang and Nanling Peak Master Ning Qiushui looked at each other and sighed before shaking their heads. This time, the West Dome Peak Academy was really doomed. No one thought that Sidu Song, who had always been arrogant and thought highly of himself, would make such a mistake. It really made people sigh. However, looking at Pei Yi, who had fallen on the high firmament battle platform, everyone could understand why Sidu Song was so angry. Pei Yi was covered in blood, his legs destroyed. Not long ago, Sidu Song still had an imposing appearance and looked down on everyone, seeing that his sword was about to reach the champion's throne, but he was suddenly defeated by a mere Chu Hen. Sidu Song, who was the peak master of the West Dome Peak, also flew into a rage and emitted a strong killing intent. However, understanding was one thing, but no one agreed with Sidu Song's actions. Just take the master of the Beichen Peak, Yuan Shang, for example. During the ranking competition of the top 16, his personal disciple, Wu Yan, had been humiliated to the extreme by Pei Yi, and Wu Yan had almost lost her life at Pei Ye's hands. However, Yuan Shang had endured it without saying a single word, and it was impossible for him to make a move against a disciple of his sect in public. At this moment, the atmosphere was a little tense. It was as if they were frozen in ice, and no one dared to speak loudly. However, at this moment, a soft voice came from the Beichen Peak Academy's crowd. Chu Hen, champion. Beichen Peak Institute is the strongest. It was like a heavy hammer that broke the silence, like the first sound that brought up the rhythm. In an instant, a string of sonorous voices swiftly erupted from below the arena. Beichen Peak Academy is the strongest. Chu Hen, champion. Beichen Peak Academy, Beichen Peak Academy. Chu Hen, Chu Hen. The crowd rejoiced, and the noise was monstrous. Surging cheers that could topple mountains and overturn the seas started to resound throughout the arena. At this moment, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yan, Ning Yu, and the other top geniuses on the Heaven Martial rankings all looked at Chu Hen with gazes of admiration. Even the expression of the number one, Qiu Xingyi, was slightly moved. Beichen Peak Academy. A shout that hadn't been heard for a long time. All the higher-ups and elders of the Beichen Peak Academy actually had an indescribable feeling of sourness, and even Dean Luo Tsang's eyes couldn't help but be suffused with traces of red light. How many years had it been? The Beichen Peak Academy had always been in existence at the bottom, and at this moment, it had finally become the main character. On the soaring cloud battle platform, Peak Lord Yuan Shang heaved a deep sigh of relief. Ever since he became the Peak Lord, he had never felt as comfortable as he did today. He turned around and looked at Chu Hen, who was standing behind him. Their gazes met, and Yuan Shang nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "Thank you." Chu Hen was stunned. Beside him, Yi Yao's eyes trembled slightly. "Master? Peak Master?" Yuan Shang smiled in relief. "Sorry, little Yao, I wronged you before." Yi Yao revealed a knowing smile, and her heart also felt relieved. The sect war. It quietly came to an end. That day was bound to become a grand chapter in the history of martial ancestor. No one could remember how that day ended. They only knew that many Beichen Peak Academy disciples shouted until their throats were hoarse, and many martial ancestor disciples were still in a daze until night time. Beichen Peak Academy. A counterattack. After experiencing this battle, they rose again. Similarly, after the sect war, the Heaven Martial Leaderboard also welcomed an unprecedented reshuffle. The first place was still Dongxian Peak Academy's Qiu Xingyi. Chu Hen directly rose to second place as a strong dark horse. As for how serious Pei Ye's injury was, he still won against Wang Li, so he was still third place. However, this third place no longer had the arrogant demeanor of the past. Thousand Illusion Sacred Physiques Wang Li fell to fourth place. Qi Qianying was 5th place. Wu Yan fell to 6th place. In addition, Yi Yao and Long Xuanshuang also entered the Heaven Martial Leaderboard because they defeated the 8th place Kai Feng and 10th place Yang Ao respectively. Of course, there were also people who were not satisfied with Long Xuanshuang's ranking. I feel that junior sister Long's ranking is too low. She should be ranked 7th, or even ahead of senior brother Wu Yan. On the square of Heaven Martial Peak, many martial arts sect disciples gathered below the newly erected, majestic stone tablet. On the stone tablet, there were names written in bold strokes, like the stars in the sky, dazzling to the eyes. That's right, I also feel that junior sister Long's ranking is too low. She could almost fight to a draw with senior sister Qianying. Although she lost in the end, her strength is far beyond the 10th place. This is just a temporary ranking. In the future, you can still challenge each other. The Heaven Martial Leaderboard ranking is different from the benevolent. There is no need to be too detailed. That's true. This year's Beichen Peak Academy is really too strong. 3 new disciples, it's simply earth-shattering. I wonder who is stronger between Chu Hen and Qiu Xingyi? I support Qiu Xingyi. After all, he has dominated the Heaven Martial Leaderboard for so many years. A few years ago, there was no one who could rival him. It's impossible that his cultivation did not increase over the years. Moreover, Qiu Xingyi's bloodline limit is a supreme grade Saint Physique. I also support senior brother Qiu Xingyi. Although Chu Hen defeated Pei Yi, with senior brother Qiu's strength, he can easily win. I feel that Chu Hen is stronger. Apart from his powerful cultivation at the 7th rank of the Eternal Realm, he is also a Zong-level rune master. In terms of overall combat strength, I feel that Chu Hen is stronger. That makes sense. I really hope that one day the two of them can fight. If there was any regret in the sect war, it would be Qiu Xingyi's absence this year. His opponent went up. Would he continue to dominate his ranking, or would he change hands? This had become a mystery to everyone. Chapter 1255. For several days, the heat of the sect war did not die down. Everyone in and out of the martial sect was constantly discussing the shocking scenes that had happened on the day of the decisive battle. The Heaven Martial Leaderboard welcomed an unprecedented reshuffle. The Beichen Peak Academy, which had been at the bottom for many years, also completed an earth-shattering counterattack with Chu Hen's victory and Yi Yao and Long Xuanshuang's entry into the leaderboard. They changed their fate of being at the bottom. As for the West Sky Peak Academy, they were completely defeated this time. Not only did Pei Yi fall, even the Peak Master Sidhu Song was pulled down from his throne. Apart from Pei Yi, Yang Ao, Xiao Meng, Lu Liao and the other geniuses on the leaderboard were also in a miserable state. Especially Lu Liao, whose street tree was destroyed. This also announced that he would never be able to climb up again. Beichen Peak Academy. The scenery was beautiful and the environment was quiet on the peak. Hearty laughter could be heard coming from an elegant and spacious courtyard. Ha 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 ha, this time, our Beichen Peak Academy can finally hold our heads high. Let's see who dares to call me Second Brother Wu in the future. What's wrong with Second Brother Wu? He seems to have quite a personality. Junior Sister Qingkai, can you not laugh at me? This nickname is simply the greatest insult to me. Ha 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 ha. Then, there was a burst of laughter. In the spacious and bright lobby, a simple and unadorned round table was filled with delicacies, exquisite desserts, and fine wine. Chu Hen, Long Xuanshuang, Yi Yao, Wu Yan, Wu Mian, Zhao Qingkai and Zhao Qingyi sat in a circle. The atmosphere was relaxed and lively. The yin-yang beast, Noni, lazily lay at the entrance and basked in the sun. From time to time, he would glance back at them, as if to him, the gathering of these humans was not interesting at all. Come, junior brother Chu Hen, let me toast you. Wu Yan held the wine cup in her hand, her eyes filled with admiration. Forgive me for what I said that night, I was too short-sighted. Senior brother Wu Yan, you are treating me like an outsider. I know that you are also thinking about me. There is no need to say such xenophobic word. Wu Yan nodded. All right, I won't say this again. After saying that, the two of them gently clinked their wine cups and raised their heads to drink the wine in one gulp. That's great. We should have joined the Beichen Peak Academy. Zhao Qingkai said regretfully. We're all disciples of the martial arts sect, so we're all the same, Wu Yan replied. It's not the same. Those people from West Sky Peak Academy were too arrogant. Now that they've been defeated like this, it's really satisfying. Zhao Qingkai clenched his fists. That's right. Yi Yao also chimed in. Her tone was filled with dissatisfaction as she said, that Sidhu Song is too despicable. Big brother Chu Hen clearly spared Pei Ye's life, but he courted death himself. In the end, Sidhu Song still wanted to kill big brother Chu Hen. Lord Sect Master's punishment was also unfair, so he only removed him from the position of Peak Master. You're right. The punishment is too light. It doesn't hurt at all. I feel like I'll be back to being a Peak Lord soon. Wu Yan shook her head when she heard Yi Yao and Zhao Qingcai's scolding. Actually, Lord Sect Master's punishment is not light at all. Isn't this light? Yi Yao asked in return. Wu Yan took a sip of wine and said, all of you don't know this, but this time, not only did Sidhu Song lose his position as a Peak Master, but he also lost the right to compete for the position of Vice Sect Master. Vice Sect Master? The few of them were stunned. That's right. Due to the fact that Lord Sect Master has been in closed-door cultivation for many times in recent years, the affairs are basically handled by the 8 Peak Masters. However, the opinions of the high-ranking officials of the 4 great Peak Academies are often not unified. Therefore, there's a need to nominate a Vice Sect Master who has the right to make decisions. Wu Yan paused for a moment before continuing. Among the 4 great Peak Masters, the profound East Peak Master, Ao Yunzhuang, is the youngest. Relatively speaking, he's less experienced. Although the South Spirit Peak Master, Ning Qiushui, is qualified, she's a woman after all. She's indecisive, so she's not suitable to be the Vice Sect Master. On the other hand, our Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang, has always been criticized because the Beichen Peak Academy has always been at the bottom. Therefore, there's a high chance that Sidhu Song will be elected as the Vice Sect Master. In the end, because of this matter, Sidhu Song has directly lost his right to be elected. After listening to her explanation, everyone could not help but be stunned. They did not expect the martial sect's high-ranking officials to have such an inside story. Heh! Zhao Qingyi smiled a little helplessly. In other words, not only did Sidhu Song lose his position as a Peak Master, but he's also lost his position as the Vice Sect Master. That's right. Moreover, according to the martial sect's rules, any high-ranking officials who are demoted won't have a chance to be promoted for at least 10 years. In these 10 years, I believe there'll be many capable elders who stand out. At that time, it'll be even more difficult for Sidhu Song to return to being a Peak Master. Hearing Wu Yan's words, the punishment this time was indeed not light. The West Sky Peak Academy would probably become the Beichen Peak Academy for a very long time. Brother Chu Hen, who exactly are you? You really surprise us more and more. Zhao Qingyi said the question in her heart with the help of the alcohol. Not only her, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Yan, and Wu Mian also looked at each other in surprise. I grew up with Big Brother Chu Hen and Big Sister Xuanshuang, Yi Yao spoke first. That must be an amazing place. Nope, it's just a very small place. The place that Yi Yao mentioned was the former Sacred Star Empire. Meanwhile, Chu Hen could not help but fall into deep thought. Putting aside the time in the Sacred Star Empire, he had no idea what kind of person he was. At the same time, this was the main reason why he came to the martial sect. Meow. Suddenly, the yin-yang beast Noni, who had been lying at the door, suddenly stood up and looked at the sky outside in shock. At the same time, an extremely strong spatial rhythm was transmitted from outside. Everyone was shocked. They looked at each other and immediately got up and walked out of the door. Rumble! The clouds in the 9 heavens changed. The originally clear sky was now covered with vast and majestic clouds. The clouds covered the sky, and dazzling rainbows traversed the sky. It was as spectacular as a god descending from the heavens. What's going on? What's going on? What happened? Many martial sect disciples were alarmed. One by one, figures flashed out from the various peaks and looked at the sky with a serious expression. Even the elders and higher-ups of the various peak academies looked at the changes in the sky with a serious expression. Boom! Under numerous gazes that were filled with bewilderment, the gorgeous divine light that enveloped the sky above the martial sect actually emitted tens of thousands of dazzling holy lights. The endless golden holy light was like the heavenly light of the gods. In an instant, the entire martial sect seemed to be bathed in a glorious divine charm. Clang! There seemed to be a melodious sound of a bell in the sky. In the brilliant holy light, a luxurious palace that exuded endless holy aura appeared. The glazed bricks and tiles were dazzling. It was like the legendary immortal palace god. That is, the expressions of everyone in the martial sect changed. All the higher-ups and elders widened their eyes and their pupils trembled. The incomparably gorgeous and spectacular scene was like a mirage that had not been seen for 1,000 years. On both sides of the palace, there was a majestic pillar. The pillar was covered with mysterious runes and secret scrolls. Then, a giant golden dragon with shining scales crawled out from the pillar on the left, and a giant python with black scales and a horn stretched out from the pillar on the right. The 2 giant beasts were like prehistoric monsters, each coiled around the large stone pillars on both sides of the palace. They opened their mouths, full of ferocity and anger. Looking at this scene, the entire martial sect was stirred up with a strong restlessness and uneasiness. Wu Yan's pupils trembled violently. She could not help but clench her fists and murmured in a low voice, "The battle between the dragon and python, the gathering of the wind and clouds, the battle between the dragon and python, the gathering of the wind and clouds?" Hearing these words, Chu Hen, Long Xuanxuang and the others were puzzled. Wu Yan said softly while holding her breath, "The call for the holy war is coming." Chapter 1256. The dragons and pythons are fighting, the wind and clouds are gathering. The holy war is coming. Looking at the shocking phenomenon in the sky above the martial sect, Wu Yan's eyes were filled with shock. Chu Hen, Long Xuanxuang, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest did not understand what she meant. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Rumble! The sky above the 9 heavens was filled with divine light. The luxurious and resplendent glass palace was like a golden palace god. It was magnificent and incomparably spectacular. Especially the golden dragon and black python coiled around the 2 heavenly pillars outside the palace, they were even more domineering and ferocious. The golden dragon and giant python opened their mouths, revealing their sharp sword-like fangs. The entire martial sect was trembling uneasily. Without waiting for Chu Hen and the others to ask Wu Yan about the reason behind it, there was a wung-wung spatial fluctuation in the sky. Under the shocked gazes of countless martial ancestor disciples, the door of the golden palace slowly opened screech. Accompanied by a loud and clear bird cry, a nimble and beautiful golden spirit sparrow flew out from the main hall. Looking at the golden sparrow, everyone's eyes lit up. From afar, the golden sparrow was holding something in its claws. That thing looked like a golden book. It was overflowing with light, like an emperor's book. The golden spirit sparrow drew a beautiful light pattern in the sky and flew in the direction of the sky martial peak. Buzz buzz, then, the rhythm of the space above the 9 heavens gradually calmed down. The magnificent golden palace and the 2 dragon pythons coiled around the heavenly pillars gradually became illusory. In the end, they concealed themselves and disappeared from the sky above the martial sect. Although the scene in front of them had disappeared, the disciples of the martial sect were becoming more and more uneasy. Noises of discussion broke out on the various peaks. Wu Yen also shook her head gently as she muttered, I didn't expect the holy war enlistment to come so suddenly. I didn't expect that we would encounter it. Hearing her words, the people around her were even more confused. What is the crusade? Yi Yao couldn't help but ask. The enlistment ceremony between all large sects and forces in the Midland. Simply speaking, it's a competition between disciples of many powerful sects and clans. It's also called the competition between dragons and serpents, the gathering of winds and clouds. It's a competition between golden dragons and serpents, and it's a holy war. The winner will be seen through the enlistment ceremony. The golden dragon soared in the 9 heavens, and the giant python swept across the earth. Hearing these words, everyone couldn't help but imagine the boundless layout of the world in their mind. Will all sects and clans in the Midland participate? Yi Yao continued asking. No. Wu Yen shook her head resolutely. Only the high-ranking sects and forces are qualified to participate in the Holy War recruitment. Second-rate forces are the lowest standard, and they have to be high-ranking forces. Apart from that, there will also be many geniuses from the Saint clans participating. Only the upper echelons of power could participate in the Holy War. Just this sentence alone made everyone sigh incessantly. Since the ancient time, the structure of the Midland had been changing all the time. Among the large sects and forces they dominated a region. Conflicts between sects and clans were not few. After thousands of years of development, who was strong and who was weak? Who lived up to their name? Who was the Saint Dragon? Who was the Flood Serpent? The answer could only be found in the Holy War recruitment. In the past tens of thousands of years, the Holy War recruitment has been going on until now. The longest interval was nearly 1,000 years, and the shortest interval was still 100 or 200 years. Wu Yen continued to explain in detail to the others. The Holy War recruitment is not only to prove the power of those sects and clans, it is also a cruel battlefield to settle the grudges between those sects and clans. Every time the Holy War recruitment is held, countless outstanding geniuses will fall. In this case, why do we still participate? Isn't it better to hide our strength, bide our time, and accumulate power? Zhao Qingkai said his opinion. Wu Yen smiled and shook her head. Where there are people, there will be disputes, and where there are disputes, there will be the martial world. The world we live in has always been a huge vat of dye. In this world, there is no such thing as stability and peace. Even if we don't fight with the outside world, we can't guarantee that disputes won't come to us. Therefore, the only choice is to prove that we are strong enough. The Holy War recruitment is a battlefield to prove whether we are strong or weak. Chu Hen secretly agreed with Wu Yan's words. This world had indeed never been peaceful. For thousands of years, people had been deceiving each other, and only those who were strong could compete in this chaotic world. Another thing is, the places where the Holy War recruitment is held are basically ancient ruins left by the Great War of Gods and Devils thousands of years ago. There are countless ancient powers that have never been unearthed. The supreme inheritances of the human race, the demon race's emperors, and even the devil race's saint venerables. After she finished speaking, Wu Yen turned to look at Chu Hen with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. The Holy War recruitment is an opportunity for all geniuses. There are many unknown geniuses who obtained great opportunities during the Holy War recruitment, and from then on, they soared to the sky and transformed from pythons to dragons. However, Chu Hen did not respond to her words. His eyes were faintly filled with a hint of solemnity. Long Xuanxuang, Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others who were standing by the side also had their own thoughts in their hearts. The Holy War recruitment was held once every hundreds or even thousands of years. Moreover, only the upper echelons were qualified to participate. Indeed, it made the hearts of everyone in the world restless. However, there were countless skeletons buried behind the glorious battle achievements and the numerous outstanding achievements. On the peak of the precipitous mountain, Chu Hen stood alone, gazing at the magnificent and imposing mountains and rivers in front of him. The scenery was beautiful, and the mountains were like pillars. Feeling the strong wind blowing over from the peak, he felt as if he was about to reach the top of the mountain. Because of the holy war recruitment, the entire martial sect was restless. The enthusiasm of the sect war was suppressed in less than half a day. No one discussed the rankings of the heavenly martial list anymore, and no one cared about whether Chu Hen could defeat Qiuxingyi. All the topics of discussion were focused on the holy war recruitment. It seems like your mood doesn't fluctuate much. At this moment, Wu Yan's voice came from behind. She walked to Chu Hen's side and stood beside him with a bright smile on her face. Chu Hen smiled faintly. For some reason, he did not have much anticipation for the holy war recruitment that everyone was paying attention to. Perhaps to Chu Hen, his purpose of coming to the martial sect was only for the wheel of time. The holy war recruitment is about to begin. I reckon that the top monstrous geniuses on the Windcloud list are all restless, Wu Yan said to herself. Windcloud list. Chu Hen was slightly stunned. Chapter 1257. The Wind and Cloud Ranking List is a compilation of the rankings of the disciples from all the powerful clans in the Midland. There are only 50 of them in total. Comparatively speaking, that is the true ranking of the top-notch geniuses. Compared to the Wind and Cloud ranking, our martial sect's Sky Martial ranking is not even worth mentioning, Wu Yan said. At the same time, there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Is there anyone from the martial sect on the Windcloud ranking? Chu Hen asked casually. Yes, there's only one. Wu Yan replied decisively. In the entire martial sect, only Qiuxingyi is on the Windcloud ranking, and he's ranked 46th. 46th? Chu Hen was stunned. There were only 50 people on the Windcloud ranking, but Qiuxingyi, who was ranked first on the Heaven Martial ranking, was only ranked 46th. This was really surprising. Just based on this, it was enough to show that the Windcloud ranking was terrifyingly valuable. To be honest, our martial sect only has a few thousand years of history. Compared to Han Yun's sect, Profound Sun Palace, Equal Heaven Pavilion, and other sects that have been around for tens of thousands of years, there's still a gap. Among these sects, there are at least 2 people on the Windcloud ranking. Especially for a top-notch sect like the War God Palace, they even have 5 monstrous geniuses on the Windcloud ranking. Their cultivation base has reached the Saint King stage, and they're known as the 5 minor Saint Kings, Saint King stage. When he heard those 3 words, even the corners of Chu Hen's eyes could not help but faintly shrink. A terrifying existence that surpassed the ancient eternity stage. A Saint King stage powerhouse could destroy mountains and rivers with a flip of his palm, and he could instantly kill an ancient eternity stage powerhouse while he was chatting. In this world, a Saint King stage powerhouse was regarded as the pinnacle of the pyramid. War God Palace. This name was not unfamiliar to Chu Hen. When they were in the tomb of the Devil and Immortal, it was precisely the elder of the Palace of War Gods, Cui Lai, who used the Xianyuan seal to seal by Qianyu's strength, causing Chu Hen and her to unintentionally enter the devil tomb of the Yama King Cui Lai even fought against 4 demon venerables from the demon city alone. The demon clan army was defeated bit by bit and fled in panic. Although half of Cui Lai's arm was cut off by the green hill fox Jun Jianga in the end, the reverence everyone had for Cui Lai at that time was enough to show how powerful the God of War Palace was. Just the War God Palace alone had 5 top-notch Saint King realm geniuses. It was truly an astonishing feat. What's Qiuxingyi's cultivation? Chu Hen hesitated for a moment before asking. Wu Yan's eyes darkened slightly as she looked at Chu Hen solemnly. She replied in a serious tone, at the very least, it should be at the half-Saint King stage. Hearing his words, Chu Hen secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. He knew that Wu Yan was a very calm person. This was just a conservative guess of Qiuxingyi. No wonder he hasn't participated in the sect war for 2 years. Chu Hen murmured. Wu Yan nodded in agreement. Some people said he was afraid of losing to Wang Li or Pei Yi, but they did not know that Qiu Xingyi did not have much expectation for the sect war. However, I think senior brother Qiu probably didn't expect you to join the sect war this year. Otherwise, I think he would have participated in the sect war again. Chu Hen smiled as he shook his head. You're too kind. You'll participate in the sect war, right? Wu Yan asked the question in her heart. Chu Hen did not answer. Instead, he quietly looked at the vast mountains and rivers in front of him as he pondered. A few days later, in the assembly hall of the Beichen Peak Academy, Chu Hen, Wu Yan, Yi Yao, and Long Xuanxuang were gathered here. This is the reward you'll receive based on your performance in the sect war. The Beichen Peak Master, Yuan Shang, and the Hall Master, Luo Tsang, stood inside the assembly hall as they looked at the four people in front of them with relief in their eyes. There was a long table in front of the four of them. There were several exquisite and luxurious items on the table. There was a wooden box in front of Wu Yan, which contained an elixir with dark golden spirit patterns and a strange saber, essence holy elixir. Wu Yan's eyes lit up. Immediately, she looked at the saber. The saber was more than a meter long and did not look heavy, but when she held it in her hand, it was quite heavy. Wu Yan gently held the hilt of the saber, and a wave of obscure power spread out. In an instant, a circle of grayish-white light patterns overflowed, and a small part of the long table below was covered with a thin layer of stone. The demon cliff saber can make the body of anyone who touches it stiff and petrify. If it hurts someone's flesh, it will instantly block their meridians. The hall master, Luo Tsang, explained. Wu Yan was overjoyed. This demon cliff saber was a perfect match for her bloodline boundary force. In front of Yi Yao, there was also an essence holy elixir. Apart from that, there were two tokens. The token was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, with a longer middle section and 5 sides. One token was white and the other was black. In the middle of the two tokens, there was a Tai Chi Yin-Yang rune pattern. The Yin-Yang token contains the power of Tai Chi and Yin-Yang. The white token represents Yang, while the black token represents Yin. It can be controlled from a distance and can kill people from thousands of miles away. Dean Luo Tsang continued to explain. In front of Long Xuanxuang, besides the essence holy elixir, there was also a black bow and arrow. The length of the bow was similar to Long Xuanxuang's own mystic rain bow, but the bow and arrow in front of her looked more simple and unadorned. The dark patterns were not exquisite, but it was very comfortable to look at. In addition to the bow, there was also an arrow. The arrow was about 1.5 meters long and had the same dark luster. The arrowhead was a sharp diamond-shaped, shining with a dark light. Moon-chasing divine bow, flying star divine arrow. Under normal circumstances, it can condense true inner force into an arrow, and when combined with the flying star divine arrow, the arrow can lock on to the target and pursue the enemy all the way. It is very lethal. Listening to Luo Tsang's explanation, Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes were filled with a faint, gentle light. She gently picked up the moon-chasing divine bow, and a trace of warmth passed through her fingertips. Her beautiful eyebrows were filled with joy. At this moment, Chu Hen said with a puzzled look, "Where's mine?" As soon as he said this, Wu Yan and the other two beside him were stunned. Luo Tsang and Yuan Shang also looked at Chu Hen. It was said to be the reward for the sect battle. All three of them had it, but the one in front of Chu Hen was empty. Forget about divine elixir pills and divine weapons, there was not even a piece of scrap metal in front of him. Was there something wrong with this? He was a champion after all. It was impossible that there was nothing. Peak Lord Yuan Shang looked at him meaningfully and said, "Come with me to a place, the rest of you can go back first." Go to a place? Yi Yao and Long Xuanxuang looked at each other, and could not help but feel a little strange. Wu Yan was quite calm, as if this was expected. Then, following Yuan Shang's instructions, the three of them left. Chu Hen, however, followed Yuan Shang in another direction. After walking across the long iron bridge, and crossing the steep and spectacular suspended road, Chu Hen arrived in front of a simple and unadorned hall under the guidance of Peak Lord Yuan Shang. The hall was not luxurious, nor was it made of colorful glazed tiles, but it gave off an indescribable feeling of majesty. Peak Lord Yuan Shang stopped at the edge of the steps and turned to Chu Hen and said, "You go in alone." "Alone?" A trace of doubt flashed across Chu Hen's eyes, but he quickly calmed down. He nodded and stepped into the hall. What entered his eyes was a spacious field of view. The atmosphere was quiet, the light was dim, and the faint smell of sandalwood floated in the air. The pillars on both sides of the hall were engraved with ancient patterns. Even if any restless person entered this place, he or she would quickly calm down. Chu Hen's footsteps were very light, but in this empty place it was quite clear. When walking to the center of the hall, Chu Hen stopped and looked up at the throne room at the back of the hall. On the throne-like stone chair, a middle-aged figure with a calm temperament but exuding an invisible aura was sitting here. This person was none other than the master of martial sect, Dongfang Hengji. Disciple Chu Hen pays respect to sect master. Chu Hen cupped his fists, his eyes were calm, and he was neither servile nor overbearing. On the way here, he had already guessed who the person who wanted to see him was, so he did not have much mood swings at this moment. "No need to be so polite," Dongfang Hengji replied faintly. Chu Hen nodded. "I wonder why sect master is looking for this disciple?" Dongfang Hengji raised his eyes slightly, and there was a trace of deep meaning between his brows. He looked straight into Chu Hen's eyes and said in a calm tone, "Perhaps I should ask you this question." "Ask me?" Chu Hen was a little puzzled. "Yes. I also want to know, why did you come to my martial sect?" Dongfang Hengji's voice paused, and then spat out a few words one by one. Demon Eye Clan Boom. Chapter 1258. "I also want to know, why did you come to my martial sect?" Dongfang Hengji's voice paused, and then he spat out a few words. Demon Eye Clan. In an instant, the flow of air in the entire hall suddenly sped up. Chu Hen's pupils tightly shrunk and his face could not help but turn a little pale. His eyes were fixed on the calm, middle-aged figure in the hall. Those eyes that were like those of a monarch were indifferent and dignified, and they were as steady as the mountains and vast seas. Finally, he was discovered. He only used the power of the demon Eye sacred body once in the sect war. It took less than 3 seconds to count to 3. It still couldn't escape the eyes of the master of martial sect. After a short silence, Chu Hen's face eased, and there was no unfriendliness in Dongfang Hengji's eyes. In addition, the other party summoned him alone. He believed that the main reason was not to expose him. Looking at Chu Hen, whose expression had eased, Dongfang Hengji's face also showed a gentle smile. At least he was sure that the other party came to martial sect without malice. "I want to borrow martial sect's time wheel." Without any hesitation, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with determination, and he looked at the other party solemnly. Dongfang Hengji was slightly surprised and asked with some confusion, "Is that the purpose?" "Yes," Chu Hen answered. "Why?" "To find out my background." Dongfang Hengji was even more surprised. "Demon Eye, apart from that, I know nothing about myself." This was Chu Hen's answer. Although the summary was very brief, it sounded inexplicably dry. Apart from a pair of demon eyes, there were no other clues. Therefore, he wanted to find his birthplace with the help of martial sect's time wheel. There was another long silence. Dongfang Hengji quietly looked at the handsome young face of His Highness. In the other party, there was a deeper determination and deep eyes than his peers. How much wind and rain had he experienced? Only then could he create such a psychological quality that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Perhaps, does the master know anything about the Demon Eye clan?" Chu Hen asked tentatively. Dongfang Hengji shook his head. "I only know that the Demon Pupil clan used to be one of the 10 strongest sacred clans. Unfortunately, more than 20 years ago, the demon pupil sacred clan encountered a calamity. That calamity caused the entire demon pupil sacred clan to suffer an unprecedented loss. There were even rumors that the demon pupil clan was on the verge of extinction. Boom! As soon as these words came out, Chu Hen felt as if a thunderbolt had exploded in his mind. The words on the brink of extinction, in particular, were like a heavy hammer that struck his heart. How could this be? Chu Hen's hands were trembling faintly. He suddenly recalled what the fox of the Green Hill, Jun Jianga, had said to him in the Immortal and Devil Tomb. Our fates are somewhat similar. A similar fate. Everyone in the world knew that the Green Hill Fox clan was known as one of the strongest demon clans, but in the past thousands of years, the Green Hill Fox clan had disappeared from this world. There were only a few of them left. Now that he thought about it, was this what Jun Jianga was referring to? Chu Hen's mind was trembling. His face was pale without a trace of blood. If the demon pupil clan had been exterminated, then what about his parents? Thinking of this, an extremely cold current caused him to shudder. Perhaps I still need to borrow the time wheel? Dongfang Hengji asked calmly. Yes. Chu Hen's eyes were cold, and his eyebrows were full of determination. It had been more than 20 years. He did not want to live in such an unclear manner. What happened to the demon pupil clan that year, where his biological parents were? No matter what the result was, he had to know. Dongfang Hengji nodded gently. Come with me. With that, he walked down the hall and headed straight for the exit. Chu Hen clenched his fists slightly and immediately followed behind him. Sect Master. As soon as the two left the hall, the Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang, who was guarding outside, also greeted them. We are going to the Heavenly Mystery Palace. You go to the Heavenly Martial List. There may be a little chaos there. Heavenly Mystery Palace? Yuan Shang was startled. That was the most tightly guarded forbidden area in the entire martial sect. Without the permission of the sect master, even the 4 peak masters were not allowed to enter. Why did they suddenly want to go there? Yuan Shang glanced at Chu Hen behind the other party, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, but he did not ask much. Yes, sect master. About half an hour later, Chu Hen followed Dongfang Hengji to a particularly spectacular sky peak. It was a magnificent giant peak suspended in the void, like a giant meteorite under the 9th heaven, with huge iron chains connected to the surrounding steep peaks. Each iron chain was shining with golden light, and the runes swayed. Looking from afar, it was like a chain-locking immortal palace, spectacular and peerless. A simple and unadorned palace stood on top of the mountain range. The palace was surrounded by tall walls, dazzling pagodas, as well as magnificent and lofty jade buildings. In front of the two was a 1,000-meter-long chain bridge. Clouds and mist lingered under the bridge, and the 9th heaven waterfall could be seen in the distance. Dongfang Hengji stepped on the chain bridge with steady steps, and Chu Hen followed closely behind. Just a few steps, Chu Hen felt 2 particularly powerful auras sweeping over from other places. Chu Hen's face changed slightly, but soon, these 2 auras were hidden. Needless to say, as the first forbidden area of martial sect, there were naturally masters guarding here all the time. If it was not Dongfang Hengji walking in front of him, but someone else, the masters hiding in the dark would not hesitate to kill him. The two walked on the chain bridge, and the body of the bridge swayed slightly. It didn't take long for the two to reach the other end of the chain bridge. Buzz, the moment they set foot on the opposite Ling Shao sky peak, a layer of water-like ripples appeared in the air, and the golden ripples slowly bloomed in all directions. Under the leadership of Dongfang Hengji, Chu Hen stepped on the peak as if passing through a layer of water. Immediately, they passed through the magnificent palace gate, walked past a luxurious pagoda building, and finally, the two came to the tallest quaint palace in the middle. The palace did not have a gate. It was completely open. But standing outside, he couldn't see anything inside. It was blurry and hazy. There was a plaque hanging above the palace. It was engraved with 3 striking characters: Heavenly Secret Palace. 2 elders, please open the main hall, this sect needs the time wheel. Dongfang Hengji said indifferently to the air. Chu Hen was startled. As soon as the voice fell, a strange wave of power spread in the air. In an instant, a layer of solid golden light curtain appeared at the entrance of the palace. Countless dazzling silver light patterns spread out on the light curtain. Buzz, along with a slight tremor in the space, the solid golden light curtain quietly became illusory, as light as a gauze curtain. Then, Dongfang Hengji took the lead and stepped inside. Chu Hen clenched his fists and followed him up the steps into the palace. The interior of the main hall was a little dim, but the surrounding walls, palace pillars, and even the ground were engraved with extremely complex runes and secrets. A bright array pattern was intertwined, swaying with the soft light of fireflies. And in the middle of the main hall, there was a strange object placed. The whole shape was a bit similar to a large carriage, but this carriage was full of large and small gears inside, and outside in the middle, there was a wheel with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters. The wheel was covered in ancient lines and was facing the gate. It slowly rotated clockwise in an orderly manner, like the rings of time that were slowly passing by as it quietly rotated. Time wheel? Looking at the strange object in front of him, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with a lot of restlessness, excitement, desire, and fear. It was indeed fear. He was afraid of seeing a scene he didn't want to see. Dongfang Hengji raised his wrist slightly and took out a dark golden token. The token was engraved with a fierce sect character. Then he raised his hand and waved, and the token turned into a beam of light and flew towards the time wheel in front. Swish, when the beam of light flew into the time wheel, a strong wave of power spread rapidly. The next moment, the clockwise rotating wheel in the middle stopped rotating, and then, under the surprised eyes of Chu Hen, it slowly rotated in a counterclockwise direction, and the speed of rotation was getting faster and faster. Soon, it reached a rhythm that could not be seen with the naked eye. Buzz, the increasingly powerful fluctuations of power continued to stack up, and the light array patterns in the entire palace seemed to be activated, blooming with dazzling colors. The spirit patterns on the wheel were abnormally bright. Then, all the brilliant array patterns emerged with a soft light, and the light that filled the world gathered towards the center of the time wheel. Wow! In the blink of an eye, the luxurious and dazzling wheel became illusory, and then a misty spiral passage appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. The gray misty passage was like the eye of the whirlpool in the storm nebula, and endless mysterious aura surged out from it. Chu Hen's eyes were filled with emotion as he looked at Dongfang Hengji in front of him. While feeling grateful, he was so excited that he couldn't speak. "I will wait for you outside," Dongfang Hengji said faintly. After that, he turned around and left the place. In the hall of the Heavenly Secret Palace, Chu Hen stood alone in the gray whirlpool passage, his hands clenched into fists, feeling that his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Then, with a movement of his body, Chu Hen jumped into the endless mysterious passage. Buzz!